Hey everyone, welcome in, welcome in. It's so nice to see your face this evening. My name's Tara, and it's live Monday night. There's several things that I have planned for you this evening. I have a couple stories to share with you, and I want to share on the topic tonight that I need support too. I think oftentimes we forget uh, when we're providing support to people, sometimes to fill ourselves up. And for me personally, I can start feeling frustrated or upset and not even realize that I need to ask for the very thing that I am giving out. As a peer support specialist, I do my best to support others, to listen, to be there with people when they need someone. And it's so hard for me sometimes to remember to do the same thing for myself. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening is that sometimes when people appear to be doing well, it doesn't mean that they don't need support too. Hey, Megan, thank you for dropping that comment. I appreciate you saying hit that like button for our girl, Tara. That's a very thoughtful thing for you to say. Slow-mo, welcome in. Kimmy, welcome in. So nice to see you. We are talking about support this evening. I have found myself struggling kind of hard this past week and this past weekend, and I'm going to tell you the story of exactly what happened. I've got a couple stories lined up for you today. I've got a few things on the list that I want to discuss this evening. So, hey, Yin's in Chicago. Hey, what's up? Welcome in. I'm so glad to see all of you here. Kimmy says, "What's up, Megan and Morrison?" So, okay, I'm going to tell the story of what happened this weekend and what this actually all happened after I wrote the title to this. I wrote the title a week ago and thought to myself, I could feel myself needing support. And it's so interesting to me to think about how everything ended up panning out, how everything turned out this past week and weekend, because I actually really did need support and I had to push myself outside of my comfort zone and ask for it from more people than I normally do. I had 3 sessions with my therapist this week. That is not normal. 1 is normal for me. 2 is that's a rough week if I have 2 sessions. 3 sessions in 1 week, full sessions. 2 of them were an hour and 15 minutes. One of them was in my normal Tuesday 60-minute session. I had 3 sessions this week. That is how rough it has been for me. And it's so bizarre to think that I felt that I was needing support before all that, before everything that I'm going to tell you that happened. I'm going to tell you the whole story. You're going to get the inside scoop. Slow-mo says, "I feel you on struggling. I got to take care of myself this week." Yeah, Slow-mo, I know you feel me on struggling. I know that coming off of any type of, I don't know if I can call it a mental health medication. Um, do you all think that's appropriate? Those who have taken subs, do you think it's appropriate for me to call it a mental health medication? I mean, I know it's an opiate withdrawal medication, but do you think it's also appropriate for me to call that a mental health medication? I'm curious about that. Matt, welcome in, welcome in. It's nice to see you with that blue wrench. Everyone, welcome my moderator, one of my moderators, Matt. He applied for the job. He asked for a blue wrench, and his wish was my command. I'm so happy to have him in the stream here tonight. So please welcome one of our moderators, Matt Kayan. He says, "What's up, everyone in here?" That is a very good blue wrench move of you, Matt. Thank you so much for moderating. I really appreciate you. Yeah, we're glad you're here, Matt. Jill, welcome in. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Kimmy's saying, "What's up, everybody?" Rachel, you made it in. Hey, Rachel, how's it going? How did everything end up turning out? I'm not going to air your laundry on here, but if you care to share everything that you just went through, I'm curious how it all turned out, but you can feel free to tell me later. Also, Rachel is a mod. I got both my mods in the house today. Rachel's got that blue wrench too, and I really appreciate Rachel and Matt coming in here, and they both applied for the job, so they got the blue wrenches. I appreciate you both wanting to support the community. Yeah, Matt says it definitely has mental health effects. I totally agree. I just wonder, like, is it appropriate for me to call it a mental health medication, or is it more like appropriate for me to call it a withdrawal medication? Matt says for me, it blocked out a lot of, I think it can be a mental health med. Okay, that's what Slomo said. I think it can be a mental health med. Agreed, agreed. I know a lot of people, well, not a lot, but I know of people who take it for their depression. Not just depression, but they used it for an opiate withdrawal medication, and they also take it for their depression. Yeah, Matt, that wrench, I'm so glad you're carrying it. Yeah, Jill agrees, subs help mentally. I love how you're all saying hi to each other. It didn't turn out good, Rachel. I'm so sorry to hear that. It's gotta be incredibly frustrating to you, and I'm happy that you're here. Feel free to vent as much as you want. Matt says, "What's up, Rach, my fellow mod?" Everyone's saying hello. Tala in the house. Hey, Tala, nice to see you. Matt Torrance in the house. Hey, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. So, I've got a story for you. This week, as I mentioned in the beginning, and this past weekend in particular, have been incredibly frustrating for me mentally. At the same time, I think it might have all happened for a reason. So, we'll get to that. I'm going to tell you what happened though. So, I typically get my ketamine treatments on Saturdays. I show up at the same time every Saturday, um, and it's been going really, really well. So, I show up to my ketamine treatment this past Saturday, and nobody's there. I normally receive treatment with one or two other people, and I am normally not the first person there. There's normally at least one or two people waiting for my nurse practitioner when I arrive. Well, this week I got there and there was nobody there. And I had this sinking feeling that treatment wasn't going to happen. So I sat and I waited 4 minutes after the session was supposed to have started, our scheduled meeting time. And I emailed my nurse practitioner. As I pulled up open the email, I realized to myself, "Oh my gosh, I did not confirm my appointment." I normally reach out via email to my nurse practitioner to confirm my appointments. I did not do that this past week. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, does she think that I don't want treatment or what?" I got to back up for a second because I also started a new mental health medication last week. That did not end up working out for me. I ended up feeling drunk on the medication. The medication's Auvelity. It's got, I forget the name of it, Dex, no, I can't remember the technical pharmaceutical name of it, but it's cough medicine in the medication that I was taking. And my body did not metabolize it appropriately. So my nurse practitioner took me off of it because I started feeling drunk. There was the last day I took it, I was like, I feel like I've had a couple drinks. So, all that being said, I stayed at my ketamine treatment at the clinic for 35 minutes. I'm embarrassed to say I stayed there for 35 minutes waiting for her to come. She never came. I didn't get a response to my email. I was like, shoot, she's out living her best life right now. She's not going to get this until Monday. And so I left, I walked home and I started freaking out. Like, I don't typically get panic attacks, but I felt like I was going to die on the way home. And it was not proportional to what was going on. I felt like a failure. I felt like everything was my fault. I felt like I just couldn't handle life anymore. Like I had failed and it was all my fault. So as I'm walking home, I'm like, why am I feeling so bad right now? And I realized, I was like, have I taken my other mental health med all this week? And I couldn't remember having packed it into my, I have a vitamin container. Some people, Matt actually endearingly calls it an old people pill container, with the days of the week on it. I have one of those. And I thought to myself, I filled it up with my vitamins, but I didn't remember putting my mental health. I take Vraylar as an antidepressant, and I could not remember packing it in there. So I was like, "Oh my god, I think I haven't been taking the mental health medication that actually works for me." So I got home, I made it. I thought I was going to die, but I made it and looked in my vitamin container and discovered that it had been 4, if not 5, I think it was actually 5 days that I went without my mental health medication because I packed it when I was feeling tipsy from that medication that my body didn't metabolize. So, all that being said, I flipped out. I lost it. I was not okay on Saturday. This was, about 1:30. My world felt like it was crashing in because it was all my fault. So I'm going to continue this story here in a second, but I want to, yes, slow-mo, dextromethorphan. Yeah, cough medicine, exactly. I missed a bunch of comments. Megan, it did freak me out. I felt completely out of control. Like I had completely lost control over my situation. Rachel, I appreciate that. Yeah, Kimmy, it's the active ingredient in cough syrup. And yes, Matt, panic attacks are really, really scary. Like I said, I typically don't have to mess with those, but I was feeling all kinds of ways. And Jill says, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you, Jill. I appreciate that. Yeah, Megan, it did make me loopy. You know what, Kimmy? That's a good point. I need to put it on live chat too, because I probably missed some stuff. Slow-mo, you almost didn't make it tonight. Is it because of the taper that you're going through? Are we going through similar stuff, not having been properly, well, not that you're not properly medicated, but we're going through medication changes together right now. Is that what you're talking about? Kimmy said, "So far, no mustache. Time will tell." Oh, because Rachel said, "Kimmy, Rayanne randomly asked me today if you grew your mustache." She was with me when I watched the video. I must have missed that one. Mustache crew. Megan, I think I said, yeah, you were like the first one in here, Megan. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Yeah, Matt, I appreciate that. The first week is rough. I think you might be talking to Slow-mo though about his coming off the, yeah, Slow-mo, because he said if I didn't have the supplements Matt sent me, I wouldn't be in this good shape. Yeah, I saw that image that Morrison shared, Matt. That was really thoughtful of you to send him that stuff. I hope it's helping Morrison. Yeah, Rachel, the Auvelity is cough medicine and Wellbutrin, bupropion. Yeah, Megan, oh, shite is right. Panic attacks are scary. Calerendon. I hope I'm saying that right. Nice to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. I'm so glad you're here. So I'm going to continue telling my story here, and then we'll get back to the comments. So I'm freaking out. I haven't taken my mental health meds, that actually, the ones that actually work for me, the Vraylar, in 5 days. I missed my appointment because I didn't schedule it. Like, all my ketamine treatments, the thing that's actually working, the things that are actually working for me, I dropped the ball on. Ketamine treatment and my Vraylar. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, do I take the Vraylar now? Do I wait? So I pull out the instructions to my Vraylar. It's like the instruction pamphlet thing that they put in with all the meds. I'm looking at it. It's like takes up it's like the size of my wall. I'm looking at it trying to figure out what you do if you miss a dose. Usually the meds I've been on, there's instructions for that. So I'm looking through the whole thing. I read the whole thing a couple times and I'm not seeing anywhere where it talks about missed doses. So finally I'm like, screw this. I'm going to look online. And so I looked it up, said to call your medical care provider or your pharmacist. And so my medical care provider, I mean, we know I emailed her and I'm probably not going to hear from her until Monday, or that I wasn't going to hear from her until Monday. And so I called my pharmacy. I got really annoyed by them because they kept transferring me, passing me around. And so finally, a pharmacist comes on the phone and says, hello. And I'm like, I've been on hold. I've been transferred. I need help. I had missed my Vraylar for the past 5 days. And so she told me to just take it in the evening. I'm like, can I take it now? Because I'm freaking out. Can I just take it now? And so she said I could. So I took the Vraylar immediately. I didn't take it that night because it's a one day regimen, or like once a day regimen. So I took it that immediately. Immediately I felt some kind of relief. I'm sure it wasn't an effect from the medication, but it was just mentally knowing that I was starting to get back on track. But I'm still uneasy, right? I'm still freaking out. Like, that didn't fix things. It just made it a little bit better. So then I ate. Food is so important. Let me know if you've heard the phrase. I'm sure everyone in here has heard it. HALT. It's don't let yourself in recovery get hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And I was hungry because I have to fast on ketamine treatment days. I was angry because I dropped the balls and it was all my fault. I was feeling a little lonely. Like, I didn't want to tell anybody what happened. I don't know if you can relate to this at all, but I was so embarrassed that I had dropped the balls. Like, everything that had happened, I was just sitting in my place alone, feeling embarrassed, not wanting to tell anybody. And I was pretty tired because I only got a few hours of sleep. Oh, and backing up, I actually had a craving to add to all the chaos of the panic that had set in when I was on my way home and realizing, oh, have I taken my medication? I started having a craving. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go walk downtown because I live downtown. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to the main street and I'm gonna get me some weed. And that's gonna fix everything. And that lasted for a split second. And then I was like, you know what? CBD. I'm gonna go get some CBD. That'll help. But then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I've made it over 2.5 years without any substances besides mental health medication. And I'm not going to do that. So the craving lasted for about 3 minutes. It was short lived, thank God. And then it was over. I made it home. Like I said, took the medication. I ate some food, which did help a little bit. And then I called Rachel, actually, who's in the chat, one of my Blue Wrench mods. And she talked to me for a little bit. Thank you, Rachel, so much for answering. God only knows how much I needed to talk to someone. And she said, are you going to call your therapist? And I was like, not wanting to call her because it was a Saturday and I didn't want to bother her. But after I got off the phone with Rachel, her question really stuck with me. And I'm like, okay, I probably should call my therapist. I thought I knew exact because I've had to call her so many times. I thought I knew exactly what she was gonna say already, and so I hesitated to reach out to her. I'm like, we're probably gonna do some tapping. We're gonna do some deep breathing. I hesitated to reach out to her because I didn't wanna bother her, just like everyone else. I didn't wanna bother them. I felt embarrassed. But I did end up reaching out to her, and it helped so much. We ended up having a full-blown session that turned into EMDR, which really got to the root of some things that were going on. And I want to get back to the comments. I'm going to tell you more about what was uncovered and how helpful it was to me. Um, so I'm just making a note here so I don't lose my train of thought. And let me get to some of the comments here. Kimmy, I have heard you say that you would never sing on YouTube, but we still want to hear you sing on YouTube. Yeah, Matt, it was a pretty gnarly set of bad events that took place. I appreciate the sentiments. Stuff does happen. Kimmy, I feel special that you researched the dextro because of me. That's a nice thing to say. Yeah, it potentiates the Wellbutrin, exactly. Yeah, Rachel, I was hoping it would work for me too, but my body doesn't metabolize it the way it's supposed to. I'm really sensitive to medication. Some of y'all know I have tried so many mental health medications and I just can't, they don't work for me. A lot of them. Vraylar is the only thing that's worked for me. And I'm not suggesting that anybody take Vraylar. I suggest that you work with your medical care team to get to the right thing for you. Or that, I don't want to suggest anything to you. This is not medical advice. I'm not a medical professional or a mental health professional. But what's worked for me is working with my medical care team to get to the right meds for me. Kimmy says, so guys, I was upset last night because I was trying to write and my brain was empty. Kimmy, what made you want to start writing? I know that you're journaling to talk with your therapist, but I'm wondering if something happened to make you want to start writing, or did you just think about like what triggered you to pick up, not trigger, that's not a good word to use here, but like what motivated you to want to pick up your journal? Yeah, slow-mo medication changes are tough, and I'm so glad that you're here and not isolating, which is what I wanted to do. Instead of reaching out to Rachel, instead of reaching out to my therapist, I thought about isolating because I was embarrassed. And I didn't want to talk about it. It's like sitting in a dirty diaper though, it doesn't it doesn't help anything. It just gets uncomfortable and causes diaper rash and is disgusting. Kimmy, you almost wrote a whole song today. So it sounds like your writer's block has been lifted. Yeah, Kimmy, sometimes the simpler the better. The more simple the better. Is simpler a word? I don't think simpler is a word. Yeah, slow-mo Kimmy could be in your band. I'd love to hear you sing on YouTube, Kimmy. Yeah, Jill, exactly. Freak myself out, get overwhelmed. Then I'm pissed off at myself because I'm overwhelmed. It's like a freaking spiral. Slow-mo says we'll have a full recovery album before we know it. So many people getting music downloads. Slow-mo, we're really looking forward to your album. Did you get your equipment in the mail, Slow-mo? Yeah, exactly, Slow-mo. I wanted that instant relief. Exactly. Yeah, Jill, it was one thing after another. It was like a domino effect. And slow-mo, yep, we're on the same page right now, not wanting to share the feelings. That's the most dangerous thing that we can fall into, in my opinion, is not being open with what we're experiencing. Jill, you've never heard of HALT? Really? Yeah, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Those are like the four things that we want to avoid at all costs in recovery. It leads to setbacks. It leads to using. Matt, you haven't heard of HALT either? That's really surprising to me. That's a really helpful acronym, I think. Yep, Megan, not wanting to bother people. Marky, yo man, welcome to the party. Is this the degenerate room? Absolute. Well, I can't speak for everybody in the chat, but this is the degenerate room. You're in the right place, Marky, for sure. I'm glad you're here. Oh, Kimmy, you want to share your song lyrics? I totally respect and understand if you don't want to sing, but I would love to read your art. Megan, I know I like big coffee mugs. The big coffee mugs are my style. I don't know why I picked big coffee mugs, but I really like big ones. I might as well be drinking out of the coffee pot. Exactly. I want to isolate too. That's my gut. That's my, and we'll get into that. I'm going to make a note of that too, because I talked about that a lot with my therapist. And it's no bueno to do that. It doesn't help. It's like, no wonder we're freaking drug addicts and abusing alcohol. Like, no wonder when we do stuff like isolate. It is a word. I forget what word it was, but thank you, Jill. Matt wanted to crawl into a cave and die during sub withdrawal. I wanted to crawl into a cave and die on the way home from my non-existent ketamine treatment. Oh, it's Angel. Cal L. Rendon. You're Angel from Santa. Oh, I think I know who you are, Angel. I don't want to blow your cover and share your location at all, but Angel, I'm so glad you made it. Awesome that you found me, and I'm glad you're here. Jill, I've had my feelings shared, then have them used against me. That is something that makes it very difficult to share feelings. If you've ever had your emotions used against you, which I think we can probably all relate to, that's abuse, first of all. And second of all, not okay. Kimmy's been through it. I think we got to find the right people. I think that's a big part of it, is finding the right people to connect with. Tala, hey, I can't remember if I said hi to you already. I was telling my story and I got all riled up, but if I haven't said hello to you, if you just got here, welcome. I'm so glad you made it. Angel, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You're going to learn a lot about me this evening because it's just me. Any questions that you have, I absolutely welcome them. Anything you want to share with the group, feel free to share. And I'm happy to have a dialogue here. Matt wants to know how long Tal has been on Kratom. I think I missed something. Oh, Tala says, lately my Kratom withdrawals have been pretty bad. And I don't know why, because I don't take it like I used to. Ah, Tala, that's tough. That's a really tough spot to be. Withdrawals from any medication, whether it's a mental health medication, um, any substance is going to be challenging. I'm just glad you're here and sharing it with us. Jill slammed 2 cups of coffee tonight and is actually coherent. I am so happy to hear that, Jill. Matt's caffeinating himself. Right on. Slow-mo, that's probably just it though, since I've been taking just half of what I use per dose. Mm, or half of what I used to per dose. Okay, so Tall is decreasing the kratom. I think it's wonderful that you're working towards a goal. Tala, I think it's incredibly tough to taper off of substances, though. And so I feel you. I'm with you. I unknowingly went off of my mental health medication. I don't know if you heard me telling that story. I'm going to get back to the story here in a second, but I feel you in terms of missing something that you're used to taking. For in my case, I accidentally forgot to take my mental health medication for 5 days. I'm pretty sure it was 5, not 4, and was not okay this weekend. I had a series of events happen. For anybody who just joined, hey, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm telling you a story. I've told a story about how I struggled this weekend because I dropped several balls, did not get my ketamine treatment as I thought I was going to get to. It was my fault. And didn't take my mental health medication for 5 days because I felt drunk on the other mental health medication that I took. So, all this being said, it was a domino effect of feeling overwhelmed because there was so much going wrong. But the overwhelm that I felt was not proportional to what actually happened. Like, and I was aware of that. I was aware that what had happened, not that big of a deal, but I felt like I was at a 10. I felt so out of control. I felt like such a failure. And I knew that the chemicals in my brain were imbalanced because I had missed my mental health medication. And I was in withdrawal. Granted, I didn't take the Auvelity for very long to really have it spin me out like it did, but I felt so out of it, not like myself at all, to the point where I was in panic, and that does not happen to me often. Heather, nice to see you. Welcome to the party. I'm so glad you're here. Heather, is it Heather, my climber friend, Heather? Jill try or Jill, see if I can talk this evening. Tala says, Jill, yeah, I tried moringa and it was no help. I took it for a month, which was the whole bottle I purchased with 100 pills, and it didn't help. That is, that's a lot to take without it doing anything, Tala. Yeah, it was the perfect storm, Jill. It absolutely was, and that's what it felt like. It felt like a freaking tornado. Heather, treatment friend. Okay, Heather, you made it here. I'm so glad to see you. So, Heather, I showed up to treatment on Saturday and nobody was there. And I was like, what's going on? And I was just telling the chat that I totally dropped the ball on communicating with my nurse practitioner about treatment, and so I never got a confirmation, and it was all my fault. And so flash forward, I spoiler alert, I did end up getting an email back from my nurse practitioner, and she was apologetic. She was like, I should have done a better job communicating with you. I actually have a friend in town this weekend, so I'll treat you next weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So that made me feel a little bit better when I got that communication from her, because it's like, okay, it wasn't all me. It wasn't all my mistake. Like, we both dropped the ball in terms of communicating with each other. But Heather, I thought I was going to get treatment this weekend. didn't get it. And then on my way home, realized that I hadn't taken my mental health medication for 5 days by mistake because I was put on another one that made me feel drunk. And when I packed my vitamin container, I didn't put my mental health medication in there. So it's probably a blessing in disguise because you're supposed to be on an antidepressant when undergoing ketamine treatment. And so, like, I wasn't, I hadn't taken it for 5 days mistakenly. So, anyways, I'll be getting treatment this upcoming Saturday, which is really good news. Yeah, Matt, I agree. It is badass to hear. I think you're talking about Tala coming off of it after 2 years of taking Kratom. Jill, that's interesting. It makes your hair grow. Matt says during withdrawal, I always try to take as much vitamins and healthy foods as possible to get my body healthy. Eventually, when withdrawal ended, I always felt like it gave me such a boost, head start towards recovery, just my body and healthy. Right, I agree with you. I think that making sure that we get appropriate nutrition and supplementation when necessary really helps to optimize our mental state as good as it can be, like I personally need mental health medication to help balance the chemicals in my brain. No way to prove I have a chemical imbalance, but I feel much better when I am taking mental health medication and receiving treatment at this point in time. I hope someday to recover to the point where I won't need them anymore. But for now, I'll take them. Heather, you had a meltdown this weekend too because of the change. My meltdown was real. It was real. And I haven't even gotten through the whole story yet. But to catch you up, I had to call a friend when I had to call the pharmacy. They told me to take my mental health medication at that time. Well, I kind of begged them to take it. They told me to take it later at night when I normally took it, but I was like, "Can I take it now, please?" And they said, "Sure, you can take it now." So that's what I did. And I ate some food. I called a friend who's in the chat now. I called Rachel. And then I ended up calling my therapist. So I told you that I was going to get to in general. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty. I don't want to bore you with all the gnarly details, but we uncovered some really important stuff during our session on Saturday. I'm so blessed. I have the best therapist. Sorry if you can hear that. There's some ruckus going on out there. I called my therapist, she answered, and we had an entire session impromptu. We stayed on the phone for about 30 minutes and then ended up going to the screen session. She lives in Hawaii, so we meet via, it's not Zoom, it's Doxy, similar to Zoom, just a different platform. So I could see her face, and we ended up she's like on the phone, she was like, "Do you want to do some EMDR?" And I told her, "Yes, please, sure." Like I wasn't sure exactly what she had in mind, like what exactly we were going to process, but I trusted her. And so we got onto her platform, and she set up her EMDR. She has a light. So I've done EMDR before where a therapist uses like an object and had me follow the object with my eyes. But my therapist has a light that's specifically for EMDR, and that was really cool to use that. We ended up uncovering some really serious emotions that came up that were rooted in things that happened in my childhood, feelings of not deserving to be around other people, feelings of not deserving to have fun and enjoy life, feelings of being a bad girl and having everything be my fault. Some really serious stuff here. And it was so overwhelming to me. And so with EMDR, which if you're not familiar with EMDR, it stands for emotional, uh, my mind, I'm drawing a blank right now. Um, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I'm totally drawing a blank on what the M stands for, but it's desensitization and reprocessing is what the DR stands for. So you're bringing up memories based on uncomfortable emotion that you're living with presently. So you use the present experience, the current emotion that's so overwhelming to you, and you go back as far as you can remember to the earliest memories that you have of experiencing this thing. And then the therapist guides you through a process of um, desensitizing you to the stimuli. So I was at a 10 when we started this process. I knew that it wasn't actually a 10. I know that things could have been way worse, but it felt like a 10 to me still. And so I communicated that. By the end of the session, I was down to I told her, she's like, "How do you feel now?" After a few phases, a few cycles of the treatment, she said, "How do you feel now?" And the first time she asked me, I was from a 10 to a 7. And then the second time she asked me, I said a 4 or a 3, which is amazing to me that in a matter of 20-25 minutes, my emotional state could go from as intense as a 10 all the way down to a 4 or a 3. We'll call it a 3.5 for the sake of this discussion. That's pretty amazing, I think. So, if you've never tried EMDR and you have some challenging emotions and have experienced trauma before, what has really worked for me very well with my in my therapy has been EMDR. And we don't do it every session, but when my therapist suggests it, I do it and it has helped every time. And then when those triggers come up, it's not as triggering. It's like desensitization. So we're going to be continuing. We did some more work yesterday, actually. I told you it's been a 3 session week for me, which is out of control, but that's how special that's how special I am. That's how much support I need, which is the topic of today's live, which again, I'll repeat it. I already said it once, but if you just joined us, I actually wrote the title before all of this even happened. It's like I intuitively knew that I was going to need more support this week. I felt like I needed more support. And I've got more stuff to talk about with why I chose that title at this time, but it's so bizarre to me that all of that happened after writing a title like I need support too. I had no idea that's how the weekend was going to go, but I did get more support. Thank God my therapist made herself available. And we did some more work yesterday. And then we'll be meeting again on Tuesday for our regular scheduled session and focusing on the reprocessing part of the EMDR on Tuesday. So we're only halfway through. We've done the desensitization. Now, she said I needed to get some rest, sleep on it, do some writing, and then we'll focus on the reprocessing on Tuesday, tomorrow. Just taking a look at the comments here. Matt said, someone on Kevin's stream said we've done so much damage to our bodies for a while, so we can't expect withdrawal to be super short too. I always keep that in mind. That's a good point, Matt. Uh, it takes time. Recovery takes time. And something I talked about with Rachel is that I think there's this misconception that everybody can just start abstaining from substance use and then magically feel better. In my experience, it's been the opposite. I think there is a population of people who can be abstinent, just stop using, and all of a sudden their life gets better, their mental health improves, and everything is restored, and it's like rainbows and butterflies all over the place. For me, that was the case. For me, my mental health took a serious dip after I got clean and sober, and I had to go the mental health medication route and the treatment route in terms of working closely with a therapist. And I'm still working on it. Like, I'm still not recovered. So I think there's, like I said, there's the population that can recover without additional treatment, just substance use treatment. But then there's this other population, which I self admittedly fall into this category of needing additional support. And my mental health recovery, I only started focusing on that 18 months into my substance use recovery. I mean, I had started working with a therapist prior to this at the same time that I started my substance use recovery. But I really started digging into my mental health recovery about 18 months in when I started the mental health medication journey. And I think that so many people miss this part, and it's such an important piece of recovery, the mental health part. Again, I realize not everybody falls into that category. Some people can just stop using cold turkey and they don't need additional support. But I think there's a huge number of people who fall in and out of recovery, and they go back to using because there are underlying mental health conditions that have gone untreated, and the person doesn't even realize it. So they start having cravings, and if they don't have the appropriate supports in place, a therapist, friends, coping mechanisms, meetings, if you're into that, this counts as a meeting, in my opinion. Kevin's Wednesday live stream counts. If those supports aren't in place, it's so easy to fall back into the what's the word I'm looking for? It's so easy to fall out of recovery and to start picking up and using again, not realizing that there are underlying mental health conditions that need to be addressed. Jerry Yale, I don't know if you're still in here, but I want to say hello, welcome. You're going to watch in the morning. Cool. Well, if you're watching this on replay, crew, I'm so glad you stopped in to say hi, and I hope you're enjoying the replay. And that goes for anybody who's rewatching the replay or watching the replay. Matt feels amazing today. I'm so glad. He says withdrawal definitely does end though, so it's all possible, and he feels amazing today. I'm glad you're feeling good today, Matt. That's great news, and I'm sure that it's inspiring to people in the chat who are going through it right now. And me too, because I'm still in this phase of like getting to a steady state with my mental health meds after the fiasco that I'm responsible for this past week. Jill took 3 milligrams of Suboxone today for pain. Jill, I'm so glad you shared that with us. Did it help you? Megan, Matt, ain't that the truth? The mind just goes nuts once we come to. That's right. Megan, can you relate to what I was saying? Like, aren't the people who can just stop using and they don't need any additional support so blessed? Like, can you imagine? But I want to highlight that just because some of us need additional support, that does not mean that there's anything wrong with us. It just means that we have some additional work to do. But I do believe with all my heart that with the appropriate effort and support, that we can recover and get to a point where we have no need to fall back into old behaviors, to where we can be living our lives on the same level as people who don't need additional support. And as a matter of fact, in terms of resilience and bouncing back, so like resilience is bouncing back stronger than you were before. So if we are having to go through all the extra work and steps that other people haven't had to go through to get to being okay and to being productive members of society who find joy in their lives, more power to us. We're warriors for that. And I've got so much respect for people who have co-occurring disorders, who've gotten clean and sober, or however they want to define their own recovery, and who have addressed their mental health conditions. It is not for the faint of heart to get to that point. If you just came in, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Feel free to drop a comment. Let me know who you are. Let the chat know who you are. And if you're struggling with something or you're celebrating something, let us know about it. We're happy to hear and to support you. Gonzo in the house, Down Home in the house. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Down Home says, I support you. I need support too. I like your video title. Exactly, Down Home. I don't know if you heard what I was talking about before, but it has been quite the rocky week for me. I have had to ask for way more support than I anticipated. And I'm so thankful that people have been responsive. And that being said, not everybody I've reached out to has been available to be able to support me, and that's okay. I think that's one of the things on my list that I want to get to is that it's important to have a plan for when we do need support. And I just am starting to develop my plan now per my therapist's recommendations, but I see so much value in having a plan for when stuff like this comes up. Gonzo says, are there any addicts that really said, I quit and did it all by myself? Doubtful. Seriously doubtful, Gonzo. Not in a sustainable manner. Maybe they stayed clean for a period of time, a month, 3 months. But in terms of people who treat themselves, I think it's pretty typical to fall out of recovery after. In my case, it was always 3 weeks. When I tried doing it myself, I hit the 3 week mark and then I was back and running. For some people, I've heard they can make it 3 months. Some people are able to make it a year. I was not one of those people. I needed support after 3 weeks. Otherwise, I couldn't make it on my own. Jerry44 Carolina, nice to see you in the house. Welcome. And he says, go Slow-Mo. Proud of you. Keep up the good work. Yes, Slow-Mo. See, people are watching and we're all really proud of you. And I'm so glad that you're here. Matt Torrance back in the house. What did you miss? When did you leave, Matt? I don't know what you missed. That's a really hard question for me to answer. But I'm glad you're back. And if you just walked in, hey, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Let me know who you are. Let the chat know who you are. If you're struggling with something, let us know. If you're celebrating something, we want to know that too. Yeah, Megan, Matt says vitamins are huge for me and I'm terrified of past damage. I think we're all terrified of past damage. And my therapist and my nurse practitioner have explained to me that even with marijuana, my brain at 2.5 years is still recovering from the damage that I did to it. Matt says, my Blue Wrench mod, he says, oh, I read that already. You're talking about the vitamins and how that gave you a boost. I read all this already. Slow-Mo's starting to feel again. That's good news, Slow-Mo. I know it can be overwhelming. I was feeling all the feels this weekend. It was overwhelming and almost unmanageable, but I would rather feel than not. And that's something I forgot to mention that my therapist said. She's like, interesting. When I told her, I felt numb. I felt so panicked and overwhelmed at that one point. And then all of a sudden, hey, if you just came in, I'm so glad you're here. I'm just in the middle of telling you about my meltdown this weekend. And there's multiple people here who need support right now. I certainly need support based on what happened this weekend. If you need support too, I'm glad you're here. Let me know what's going on with you. Let the chat know what's going on with you. And we're happy to support you. So I told my therapist that I was incredibly overwhelmed initially, but then as we were talking, she's like, "How do you feel now?" And I was like, "I just feel numb. I don't feel anything at all." And she goes, "Interesting." Which to me was like, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean when you say that's interesting? What am I supposed to make of that?" And then we got to some really deep stuff just based on the fact that I was feeling numb. I used to self-medicate uh, to feel something. I would oscillate in and out, and I need to tell my therapist this because I told her I used and drank to feel numb, but half that's true half the time. The other half of the time, I already felt numb in my so before I would pick up and start using, and I would use to feel something. So it's like kind of complicated. Like half the time I was numb and I wanted to feel, half the time my emotions were out of control and I wanted to numb them out. It's a lot to wrap your head around. I don't know if anybody can relate to that one. Let me know if you can. Kimmy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. You're right. It's eye movement. I don't know why I thought it was emotional for a second. It's clearly that's where my brain was. Matt says that's still positive. I think you're talking about Slow Mo's comment. I missed some stuff. Matt's having dreams finally. I think that's what he means, minus the demons. That's great news. Slow Mo said that's encouraging. And Matt said that's positive. Whoop, whoop. Get some. Matt, I appreciate you being here. It's really nice to see you. Yeah, reprocessing. Yeah, Slow Mo says you face it, you look at what hurt you. Exactly. It is so challenging to do that. I think it's a huge missing piece of recovery. It's hard. It's not easy to give energy to healing. Slow Mo says, like when God told Moses to put the serpent on the staff and the Israelites were healed. That's a really good example, Slow Mo. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, Kimmy says that's okay. I always want to say realization rather than reprocessing. Well, so we're in the same boat, Kimmy. Our powers combined, and I move, or no, it's, what did I say? Emotional movement and realization. I don't know. It's EMDR. Eye movement reprocessing, or wait, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Call it whatever you want. It works in my experience. Jill says, I'm promoting moderation. Uh, I'm promoting moderation. Then when you do need it, it works. That makes sense, Jill. I respect that. I respect that that's how you want to how you view recovery. I think moderation is a great goal. I might adopt that methodology eventually. Today I operate with a abstinent based model, but that's not to say that I won't modify my recovery eventually. And I've shared on that in past lives. Kimmy says, I understand what you mean when you say MJ is a soft substance, but I also think it can be invalidating to people who suffer with MJ usage disorder. Yeah, Kimmy, I think that's a really great point, and I go back and forth on it, and I really don't even know how I think about it. Quite frankly, my head is still spinning in terms of my nurse practitioner telling me I might be able to use responsibly one day. I haven't made my decision on that. Heather says, I agree. It was an overwhelming weekend. Feelings of rejection came up, missing my appointment. I can relate to that, Heather. And that's something I had to work on with my therapist too, is my abandonment issues, which I didn't even know. I knew I was aware of some of my abandonment issues, but my therapist pointed out a whole other set of abandonment issues that I wasn't even aware of until she pointed it out and explained it to me. And I was like floored by that. I was shocked. Quite frankly, I was exhausted on Sunday having to go through all of this. Matt says Mary J is one of the things, or one of those things. It has benefits for some, but I've also seen it have negative effects on other people I know. Yeah, that's my biggest fear, is that if I started to engage again, that it would be detrimental to me. Gonzo says it does to children. It does, I think marijuana probably does to children and kids whose brains haven't developed before the age of 25. Right. And I started using when I was 15. So I definitely fall into that camp. Marijuana has ruined some people's lives for sure, but as humans, especially in the world of substance abuse, marijuana is the softest of all substances, generally speaking. Oh, and that's what Kimmy was saying about the soft substance. See, this is what happens when I go out of order. Gonzo says, "Hi, Tara. You're looking very nice. Do you do the tapping thing with your EMDR?" Great question, Gonzo. Uh, we do tapping, but we don't typically mix the tapping with the EMDR. I thought for sure, and I told Rachel this, I thought for sure that my therapist was going to have me tap, because I've freaked out and called her in the past, and tapping was her suggestion. This was different. And I don't know in her mind why she suggested tapping at one time, but this was an EMDR appropriate situation. I'll have to ask her about that. So that I think I think it was so intense that she was like, "Do you want to do EMDR?" But to answer your question, Gonzo, and I'm actually going to write that down. I want to remember to ask my therapist about EMDR versus tapping. Yes, I do tap in my personal life and with my therapist sometimes, not all the time, but it works also. Slow-mo, hit that like button, yo. Yeah, I appreciate that, Slow-mo. Thanks for being so supportive. Slow-mo, even though you're not feeling great, you still showed up with a positive attitude, and I think that's something very commendable. Your perseverance. You've got perseverance, friend. Yeah, Kimmy said, tapping rocks. I need to remember to utilize it more when I'm dysregulated. Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you bring that up, Kimmy, because I don't think I highlighted that tapping can be really beneficial to bring your emotions back to a balance when you're dysregulated, as the psychologists call it. Gonzo says, I used to cross my arms and tap my shoulders per my therapist's instructions, but if she gets winded, my wrist starts to hurt. I just tap my feet. That's interesting, Gonzo. I've never heard of that strategy before. Gonzo says, I hear you, Morrison. At least you taper the right way. You also expected this, but good news is that you'll feel better much quicker. That's some nice encouragement, Gonzo. Yeah, Kimmy says, Gonzo, tapping is an emotional freedom technique. It involves releasing trapped energy from meridian points within the body. True that. Down home, are you still here? How are you doing? What's going on with you, man? Hey, if you just walked in, I am so glad you're here. I've been talking about how I had a pretty rocky week and weekend last week, and the things that I have done to get back to feeling okay. I'm not completely recovered yet. I'm still working on it. Kind of in the middle of my story here. I've got more talking points to go on, but long story short, I have needed to ask for a lot of support this week, way more than I'm accustomed to, and it was very much out of my comfort zone. I think there's some people here who could use some support too. So thank you everyone in the chat who's providing support to people who really could benefit from it right now. I appreciate all of you. And I appreciate you showing up and asking for support too. I think it's a skill, and that's part of what I was wanting to convey tonight, is that it's not always easy to ask for help. It's especially for people like us who are in recovery from substance use. We are so used to isolating and trying to handle things on our own. It is, for me, absolutely out of my comfort zone to throw up a white flag and say, I need some help. It's so much easier for me to jump in and support other people. But when it comes to asking for support myself, I struggle with that. And I hope as time goes on, I start to feel more comfortable with reaching out to people. And I hope that I start attracting more people into my life who are actually capable of being available and showing up for me when I need them. Jill says my tongue, my son does the tapping thing when he talks to me. Oh, interesting, Jill. That's I've never thought to do it during a conversation or, yeah, in normal life. I'm gonna have to put that one in my back pocket and not wait until I'm completely spun out to pull out the EFT. Kimmy says EFT, the emotional freedom technique, the tapping is amazing. It brought me down from a full blown panic attack. Tala is just getting done with dinner. Now he's back. I'm glad you're back, Tala. What was for dinner? Yeah, you can take a break with us from cooking. Definitely, Tala. Everybody needs a break sometimes. Jill says, heck yes, Gonza. Or wait, I missed Matt. Matt says, Kimmy, know of any resources for learning about tapping, or should I just YouTube it? I'd be interested to see what. Okay, Kimmy's going to send Matt some links. I think Kimmy will send some really good links. There's so much information about tapping on the internet, but I would trust what Kimmy sends for sure. Jill says, give me 5 now. I'll get you back with 10. I think, does that mean you're taking a break, Jill? Be safe out there. Slow-mo, I'm proud of you too, man. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I'm proud of myself too, and I'm proud of you. Jill says, Tara, I don't know what tapping, or I didn't know what tapping was before. I didn't used to know what tapping was either until I worked with a therapist who taught it to me. Matt says, this community of support is so appreciated. I agree. I love that you all show up. I just started doing this a few weeks ago. I think this is my third Monday night in a row. And I'm so thankful that I've got such great people showing up and participating in the chat. It's an honor, truly. Matt, I don't know if you're still here, but I'm just seeing your comment. Why does everybody say marijuana doesn't do any damage? I don't know, Matt. I think it's one of the biggest lies out there, and I believed it for a really long time when I was in my uh, misuse of the substance. I thought that it was the best thing I could be doing for myself. And granted, I think it was better than some of the things I could have been using. Marijuana for me was my solution to not doing harder drugs because I tried harder stuff and found myself dependent on it very, very fast. So marijuana was my answer to staying safe. I had no idea the damage I was doing to my brain. And I don't know why there's a notion or a conception that it's not damaging. I think for some people who can use in moderation, it's not damaging or might not be damaging. But for some people who misuse it and abuse it, it's absolutely damaging. Yeah, Kimmy, anything used in excess can cause damage. Gonzo says it does to children and kids whose brain. Oh, I read that already about the age of 25. Kimmy says feeling numb can be a coping mechanism when we're overwhelmed. That's why I always go back and forth between overly emotional and numb. Yes, Kimmy, I can relate to that. Absolutely. I'm either feeling numb or I'm feeling out of control. The depression, I think, is the numbness feeds into my depression. Um, so I have something called, I don't think I've shared this in a live stream. I think I might have mentioned it in one video. I have a diagnosis from my current therapist called an adjustment disorder with anxious and depressed moods. I was in denial for a long time that I have anxiety. I thought I just experienced depression, and most often that is what I experience. But this weekend was a perfect example right in my face of how I definitely get anxiety at times. I don't know if y'all can hear my neighbor. We have a hallway here, shared hallway, and the laundry room is just a couple doors down. So I can hear all that. Can y'all hear that? Gonzo says, correct, Matt. Alcohol is illegal, but there's never been an alcoholic who has said liquor has helped their lives. I'm sure there are as many positive stories of people who THC has benefited them, while others the complete opposite. Gonzo, I appreciate that perspective. I feel like perspective that you're sharing is really validating for someone like me who way misused marijuana. I also understand the perspective that for some people it can be healthy if it's used in a moderated way. Like Jill has said, moderation is the key. I totally respect that perspective. That's way better than abusing it. I've just never been able to use it that way. I smoke it all day, every day, and I'm looking for the strongest stuff and I'm taking dabs with it. Like I'm not messing around. Slow-mo says, I feel that, Tara, going between being numb and feeling too much. Exactly. And that's exactly what Kimmy was saying too. Uh, Jill says, so she said this before, she's saying it again. She's saying, I'm promoting moderation. Then when you do need it, it works. Jill, I'm jealous, honestly, not in a negative way, like not in an envious, I want to hurt you kind of way, but like I'm jealous that you can use in moderation. I haven't even tried that. Maybe someday I will, but for now, I've committed to my nurse practitioner that I will be abstaining from marijuana and alcohol. Alcohol is not a temptation for me, though I really don't have a desire to drink. I have a desire, just like I told you, I had a craving just Saturday. It's fleeting. It was very short, thank God. But I haven't got to the moderation decision yet. I don't know what I'm going to do when I cross that bridge. I might very well continue to abstain completely because it's worked for me, but I won't be able to make that decision until my nurse practitioner says it's time. Gonzo says that's why I preface it. I think he said why I preferences it with MJ. I I think Gonzo means that's why I preface it with MJ has ruined people's lives. I'm just pointing to stats. Right. Absolutely. There is a population of people that marijuana has caused detrimental effects. 100%. Gonzo, I'm in no way invalidating Tara, and I agree with you, Kimmy. Gonzo, I think you probably wrote that before I made the comment about feeling validated by you, but I really appreciate you saying that because it's really frustrating at times to hear people. I'm just going to speak from my perspective. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers or anything like that, but as a recovering, I hesitate to use the word alcoholic, but as someone recovering from problems with moderation, as Jill said, with both alcohol and with marijuana, it's been incredibly frustrating to deal with pushback that I get at times, not from everybody, but from some individuals who can't understand how I could be addicted to something like marijuana. I respect the perspective 100%, but relatively speaking, that was my drug of choice because I felt safe with it. I felt like, all right, this isn't going to kill me. Some of the other stuff that I've tried or been offered could kill me. And I wasn't willing to go that route, but I needed something. I needed mental health medication is what I needed, but wasn't there yet. I wanted to go the natural route, and I didn't really consider marijuana to be, I mean, it was a medicine to me, but I didn't realize how dependent I was on it and how much I needed it until I was doing it way, way in excess to the point where I couldn't even function. Gonzo says, "It's just a play on my last name." Oh, talking about his screen name. Gonzo says, "Kimmy, are you mad at Gonzo? Did I miss something?" I think it was just a friendly debate about the effects of marijuana going on. I might have missed something though. It's quite possible. Jill says, "Well, I'm old and tired of feeling like I relapsed. If you think you need it, it's okay." Jill, this is a really interesting point, and I think it can be really challenging for people to be faced with. It's like we've been so conditioned in programs like AA and NA to think that abstinence is the only way to be in recovery. This could not be further from the truth. And this is something that I really appreciate from peer support specialist training is that, and I've talked about it before, I'll talk about it again, I'll talk about it till I die. Recovery is self-defined. We define our own recovery. So, Jill, you have defined recovery, if I understand correctly, as a moderation type of model. And I respect that. That works for you. And I think that's wonderful. For me, my recovery at this point in time is an abstinence based model from all mind altering substances, less mental health medication, and ketamine. For me, that's the route I've taken. I take it as prescribed, and that's what I've decided. I might one day adopt Jill's recovery model, and that would be okay. I'll have to work on not feeling ashamed and not feeling guilty that I am now going from an abstinence based model to a moderation based model. And I will have to make sure that I can really not give a rip about what other people think because I was programmed in AA for abstinence. But I don't believe that's the only way. Jill, I think you're really brave for sharing that you have a moderation based model. Oh, Gonzo loves Kimmy. I love Kimmy too. I think everybody here loves Kimmy. Ooh, Kimmy can relate. So Kimmy says, I got that a lot because my drug of choice was Norco, people invalidating my addiction. So Kimmy gets what I was saying. And Kimmy, I never knew that you went through this with people invalidating your addiction. I always kind of thought that you were in the club with everyone else who's done the opiates. And I appreciate you sharing that with me because it can be a really lonely place feeling like nobody, for me personally, I have felt like nobody understands me. I don't fit in here. But addiction's addiction. I mean, I could sit and identify with a gambler. I don't gamble. I've never had a gambling problem in my life. I can gamble in moderation. I don't really like it, to be honest. But the mechanism of action in our brain in terms of seeking out the dopamine potential is the same. The mechanism of action of addiction is the same no matter whether you're looking at pornography addiction or drug addiction. I mean, I think there can be value in having specific recovery groups so that gamblers can relate with other gamblers, but really I would welcome any kind of addict into this group for support, in addition, obviously, to mental health, just recovery in general, because we're all the same. We're all recovering from something. Slow-mo says we all have different journeys. Just because some of us did have sexy or a hard drug of choice doesn't mean the addiction demon is any easier. Exactly, Slow-mo. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Addiction is addiction and it's nasty, no matter what your drug of choice is. Gonzo says that's stupid of them. Norcos is a narcotic. Can you all hear the Espanol that's being spoken right now? Right, Kimmy, compared to oxy and fentanyl. Well, I feel the same way as a recovering marijuana abuser, that it's it's hard sometimes to quote unquote go up against the fent users because it is different. You know, the drug of choice is a different beast. I realize that it's way more addictive than marijuana. The recovery process, though, all looks the same. The mechanism of action all looks the same, but I understand where fentanyl addicts and oxy addicts and um, crack cocaine, methamphetamine. I understand where they're coming from when they invalidate something like my drug of choice, like marijuana. But relative to my experience, my drug of choice, because I felt safe with it, was marijuana. And it's been the hardest thing that I've done in my life to give it up and to focus on my mental health recovery without using. Yeah, slow-mo. Any addiction isn't good, no matter what the substance is exactly. Matt says, I'm a musician who never smoked any devil's cabbage. Wow, Matt, that's impressive that you've never engaged in using that substance before. I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I'd be interested to hear more about that. What about it hasn't been appealing? Have you engaged in any other kind of substance use, alcohol, um, kratom, anything like that? What do you have a drug of choice, or are you hanging out because we're a fascinating bunch? Let me know. I'm glad you're here, Matt. I'm glad you're here. Eh, I wonder if you're still here. I want to hear more about your story. Matt says, I'm addicted to buying guitar pedals. Matt, are you making a joke? Or are you actually serious? Do you have like 1,000 guitar pedals to the point? I'm imagining this room where there's like guitar pedals hanging from hooks and like you can't open your closet because there's guitar pedals in the way on the floor. I'm not making fun of you, Matt. I hope you know I'm not making fun of you. I'm just letting you know what happened in my brain. And do you play any other instruments, Matt? Leia, I'm so glad to see you, Leia. So I was thinking about you the other day and I was like, she came in my live a few weeks ago and there's this other girl and we've subscribed to each other on YouTube and her name is Leah. And so when you came in, I don't know why. I think I did it to you twice in the same day that I called you Leah. I want to apologize. Everybody, Leia Cooper, it's Leia is how we say her name. And so, Leia, I'm so glad to see you. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. And I hope you're doing well. Leia says, our culture tries to turn everything into a competition. Like there's not enough compassion to go around, which is really not true. I couldn't agree with you more, Leia. I think that you hit the nail right on the head. It's not something that I thought to touch on at all, but compassion goes a long way. And if there was a little bit more of it in the world, I think it'd be a much better place. Very good point. Leia says, no worries. Leia, I felt so bad. I was thinking about it later that same night and I was like, I think I called her Leah and I had to watch it back. And I was like, oh my gosh, I said her name wrong. Again, my apology. Thanks for being so gracious. Kimmy says, I definitely considered myself a high functioning addict. I think a lot of us probably did, Kimmy. A lot of us in this chat right now, I think, held ourselves to high regard. Like we didn't have a problem because we thought we had our stuff together. So you're definitely not alone in that. Matt says he thinks he has between 100 and 200 guitar pedals. Dang, Matt. Maybe you are a guitar addict. I've never met a guitar pedal addict before, but I guess there's a first time for everything. Bear with me while I scroll. Gonzo said, I'd like to have a stream or a Zoom call with us and we can just share our addiction stories or what we have done that we are regretful for doing. I know I have a ton of those. Gonzo, great minds think alike. I've also been thinking of hosting a Zoom, but then I started going live on Wednesdays after Kevin. So now I'm live on Mondays and tentatively Wednesdays. I don't know if I want to put a Zoom meeting on my plate in addition to the two lives and then the other content that I'm creating in addition to the other activities that I'm committed to. So I think it's a great idea. Um, I do go back and forth with like wanting to create a Zoom. I think it's a great idea. I just don't know if I want to spearhead it. And I apologize for saying that it was something I was thinking about doing a few weeks ago. That was before I took on the Wednesday slot. But that being said, I don't know that I'm going to continue to host lives on Wednesday. And perhaps let me know what you think about this idea. I would you prefer live streams on Wednesdays after Kevin's meeting, or would you prefer Zoom? Because I could commit to doing a Zoom instead of a live stream, But if you prefer the live streams in lieu of the Zoom could go somewhere else sometime in the future. But let me know your thoughts on that. Sticky Wagers in the house. Hey man, I don't know if you're still here, but if you are, I'm glad you're here. It's so nice to see you, and I've really enjoyed going back and forth with you in the comments. Sticky Wagers, what's going on with you? I've been talking about my struggles. I've been digging into the comments for the past several minutes now, but I've been talking about how challenging it has been for me the past week and a half. A bunch of stuff that I did not anticipate came up, and I had to ask for quite a bit of support this past week. And I'm kind of like in the middle of that story, but then a bunch of comments came through that I wanted to get to. So let me know how you're doing, Sticky Wagers. Are you needing support? Are you finding that you're giving a lot of support right now? Do you have something you're struggling with, something you want to share that you're celebrating? Let us know. We want to hear what you're going through. Kimmy says, maybe I'll make a video doing a tapping session. Kimmy, you've been talking about that for a while, and I think it's a really great idea. Slomo says, tonight is really helping me. I keep thinking I could just take a piece to feel better. I just keep telling myself I'll do it later. Slomo, it's really brave of you to share that with us. And I gotta tell you, I feel inspired to share that something that has really helped me is just not today. Just not today. Um, I don't want to encourage you not to use it, but if you have made a because I think it could, I could see either way. Like you have my support if you want to take a little bit, and you have my support if you want to abstain. What has really helped me in abstaining from marijuana and alcohol is just not today. Like I was telling Jill and everyone in the chat, there might be some day where I do choose to use marijuana or try to use it in moderation, but today is not the day for that. Uh, until my nurse practitioner gives me the freedom to make the decision, which she said it's coming. She said someday I might be able to do it. But today is not the day. I'm getting ketamine treatment. I'm on mental health medication. I have depression and PTSD, and it could cause paranoia. Today is not the day for me to start engaging. If sometime down the road I choose to use recreationally, and I realize it's not the same thing, but I really wanted to share that a saying that has really, really helped me is just one day at a time. I know it sounds cliche, but like the NA way is just for today, just today. So Slomo, again, I support you. I realize that you actually might benefit from taking a small dose, because I know you jumped off from like a higher dose than a lot of people jump off from. But I just want to share with you, and let me know, Slomo, like what do you actually want? That's what I really want to know. Aside from what's worked for me, which is just for today, I'm not going to use. For you, what are you actually going through right now? Do you want to supplement, or do you want to abstain? And forgive me, Slomo, if you said this already and I missed it. Jill says, so I was pissed off when I realized that he only does it when he talks to me. Jill, are you talking about your son tapping? I could understand how that would be upsetting to you, but I think it's wonderful that he's engaging with you. He wants to have a relationship with you, and that's beautiful. Tala, I appreciate that compliment. I am flattered to hear that you think I'm doing a great job. I feel like I've been stumbling quite a bit tonight. I haven't even gotten to everything I want to share, and we're already an hour and a half in, but I'm doing the best I can, and I'm glad that everybody's here. Okay, Angel wants to know what type of music makes you relax. Instrumental. Uh, I really like tribal kind of music, stuff with sitars and uh, like tribal kind of drums. Um, I was about to say Dirt Wire, but I listen to Dirt Wire during my ketamine treatment and it's relaxing to me, but I wouldn't call the Dirt Wire. Dirt Wire has different types of music. They have music with words and then they have instrumental. It's all the same type of music. So I misspoke there, but some of their music is instrumental and some of it is with words. And personally, I find all of their music to be relaxing because it's awesome. But I would say instrumental. Like sometimes if I just want to relax and I want to study or I want to read something, I'll look up a lo-fi Spotify playlist. Lo-fi. Lo-fi is relaxing to me and I like it. I like classical too, but I haven't been listening to a whole lot of classical because I've been on a lo-fi kick. Jill, pop makes you stupid as hell. Yeah, Matt, I agree. I think Kimmy doing a tapping video is a fantastic idea. Sticky Wager says marijuana hurt me when I stopped mentally. Sticky Wagers, thanks for sharing that with me or with us. I did not realize that you had used marijuana and then you stopped. I totally agree with you. It was a mental. Uh, I was about to say something inappropriate, and now I'm trying to replace it with something that's more YouTube friendly. Um, we'll just say we'll just say that I had mental challenges too when I stopped. And 3 weeks after, I was about to rip my face off. I almost left the program that I was living in a safe house. Actually, I almost left the safe house that I moved into where I went to get safe from someone who was following me. I almost left there to go live in my car again just so I could use marijuana, and I'm so glad I didn't. I'm so glad that I started working my recovery, and the director of that house brought me to my first AA meeting. I know we all have our thoughts and opinions about AA. And if you just came in, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're into AA, I support you. If you hate it, I support you. I see both sides of it. But I got to say, in the beginning of my recovery journey, it helped me so much to go to those meetings. It's the only form of recovery that I had available to me at that time. And it helped get me to the 1 year mark. That being said, once I got to the 1 year mark, it wasn't enough for me. I needed some additional tools and coping mechanisms outside of Alcoholics Anonymous and my therapist, which I've found. And this is a perfect example of something that's helping me. These online meetings, Kevin's meeting, Kimmy's meetings, they help me tremendously. I agree with you, those sticky wagers. I went off on a tangent there, but stopping marijuana was definitely a mental challenge for sure. Hey, whoever just came in, I'm so glad you're here. Let me know who you are. The chat wants to know who you are. If you're struggling with something, if you're celebrating something, we want to know about it. Gonzo says, I missed that, Tara, about you reading the study. I am sorry to repeat it. That's okay, Gonzo. You can repeat all you want. I think sometimes people need repetition in order for things to really sink in. I also don't think anything happens by mistake. I think everything has its purpose. Jill says I was pretty bad with the 420 dabs. Yeah, Jill, that was my thing too. Dabs all day, every day. And Gonzo says, thank you, Tara. I wasn't always as open minded about the harm of weed. Just one of the many ways you've made a better person little by little. Gonzo, that's such a high compliment. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of people would not have the humility to be able to admit that their perspective has changed. I commend you for your ability to communicate that you've changed or maybe modified your perspective on that. That's phenomenal. That's really wonderful. Jill says, I don't have a choice. If I binge, it would probably kill me. On marijuana, Jill? Is that what you're talking about? Yes, pot is awful. Gotta burn a hole in the car. Got gotta burn a hole in the carpet. Jill, I thought you used marijuana in moderation. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. Gonzo says, I know, Tara, especially us hardcore opiate addicts. I feel so bad when this young man came into our AA meeting, but most were fent addicts and he wanted to stop using weed. He would use it all day. Yeah, it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle. And it's really, really hard walking into a meeting, especially NA. I found it really difficult to feel comfortable in NA talking about my struggles, because people were dealing with really hard stuff, and I have a lot of respect for that. Not I didn't feel judgment from everybody, but I certainly felt it from some. It's like, where are we supposed to go? You know, there is a such thing as Marijuana Anonymous. The meetings are so small there. There's actually only one in my city per week, and there was only I went there one time, and there was only like 8 people in the meeting. So I was told by the director that brought me to my first meeting that I could take the word alcohol out of the big book and replace it with anything like marijuana, for example. So I actually was in denial about my problem with alcohol when I started Alcoholics Anonymous, and I went because I was about to leave the safe house to go get high. But um, as I listened to the stories of people on, like, they're describing me and my relationship with alcohol. So it was kind of an interesting journey getting to the point where I could identify as someone who has been challenged with substance misuse issues, not and even though I say my drugs of choice were marijuana and alcohol, I've tried lots of different things and I've abused lots of different things. It's just that if I had to choose one or two, it would be marijuana and alcohol. And I chose those because I thought they were safe. Kimmy's driving. She'll be back. Kimmy, drive safe, please. Scott, nice to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. Scott says, I'm in a weird spot. My addiction specialist just recommended THC for chronic pain, and I've been feeling guilt about it. I'm 8 years sober in March. Scott, that is quite the situation that you're in. I just want to read this again because you say you're in a weird spot. I can relate to this because my nurse practitioner recently told me that I might be able to engage in recreational use of marijuana one day. Not today. I don't have permission to use today, but once I recover from my mental health conditions, which I'm putting all of my energy into right now and believe that I will get there one day, there will come a day that my nurse practitioner says, you can do it if you want to. And I haven't made my decision on how I feel about that, if it's a road I want to go down. So I can relate to feeling weird about the thought of using. That being said, your addiction specialist is the one who made this recommendation. And I so understand what you're saying about the guilt because that's the biggest thing that I've been thinking about. It's like, all right, if I do get to the point or I choose to use in moderation, am I going to be able to get past the guilt and the shame that I've been programmed to feel in my recovery about marijuana? So, Scott, a question I want to pose to you is, what do you want to do? Because I think guilt and shame come from, I mean, it comes from within, but we're feeling guilt. For me, I would feel guilt about engaging because I'd be worried about the judgment from other people. That's me personally. So, does the guilt, does that come from being concerned about what other people think? Does it come from being concerned about what you're going to think about yourself? Because I can relate to that too. And really, what are some ways that you could work through those emotions, regardless of whether, because I would be willing to bet that if you've got feelings of guilt about that, then there are feelings of guilt, which I've been talking about myself throughout this stream, that I worked through some feelings of guilt and shame with my therapist this past week. I had to ask her for a lot of support. So I would be willing to bet, and I apologize if I'm overstepping my boundary here. I'd be willing to bet this isn't the only thing in your life that the emotion of guilt comes up with respect to. And I'm certainly not a therapist. I'm not a mental health professional, so I'm not even going to try to get to the root of anything or try to treat trauma. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I want to provide peer support. So my question to you is, how do you feel about the situation, and how do you think you could work through understanding how you really feel? And I need to ask myself the same question about potentially using in the future. Really curious to know your thoughts on that if you're still in here. Scott says, I think I've been on a bit of a high horse coming from a full abstinence program minus Suboxone. My dad works in a detox, and I do think I feel guilty about his opinions a lot. Okay, so it sounds to me like your dad has influenced you in feeling the way you feel, and your recovery program coming from, I think you said it's, well, you didn't specify full abstinence, but I can relate because I got clean and sober in AA. And so I wouldn't even, I can't even imagine telling my AA circle. Like, I haven't told my AA circle, I've told one person about this channel. I haven't told AA about this channel because I don't believe that abstinence is the only way to run a recovery. I believe that it's self-defined. I think it's up to the individual to say what recovery means to them at this point. But I haven't felt as bold or as courageous at this point as to tell my abstinence-based friends that, yo, recovery is up to me and I might actually smoke weed someday again. Like, I don't feel comfortable doing that yet. One day I hope to be there, and today is not that day. Gonzo just retracted a statement. I'm wondering what you said, Gonzo. Real Truth in the house. Hey, Real Truth. I'm so glad you're here, and it's nice to see your comment. Real Truth says the Adderall shortage is ridiculous. Real Truth, I've got a friend. I am not going to say who that friend is, but the Adderall shortage is real, and it's really starting to piss me off for my friend. Scott says, the subs stopped helping a while back. I went to Hazelden Betty Ford and is AA based, but I had an awful experience or awful experiences with sponsors and have been kind of running my own program. Scott, that's really interesting. What kind of program are you running for yourself? I, I was hardcore AA. And you know how they say, I had an idiot, or what do they say? I used to sponsor myself. I had an idiot for a sponsor. I'm sure you've heard that before. I've heard it so many times. And I think about Smart Recovery, which I haven't engaged with Smart Recovery yet because I started and I got hijacked. I got brought to AA and then programmed in AA. I wonder though what Smart Recovery would be like, because from what I understand, and please feel free to correct me if I'm not accurate here, the way I understand Smart Recovery to operate is that it's self-guided, self-led. You work at your own pace. I don't believe there are sponsors in Smart Recovery. Again, I could be wrong on that. So if you've been through Smart, Gonzo, don't you run Smart Recovery or engage with the Smart Recovery program? Are there sponsors in Smart Recovery? Scott got his last Sublocade shot today. That's exciting, Scott. How did that go? Did it hurt like a banshee? Yeah, Slow-mo, we do support whatever you choose. Slow-mo, I apologize if I missed a comment because I asked you some questions about what you were going through, and I'm still working my way through the comments. I just wanted to get live for a minute with y'all and be present with who's in here, and then I'm going to be going back to the comments. So I apologize if I skipped over one of your comments. Gonzo says, that's awesome, Scott. As for your first comment, are you just disenchanted with your church? May I ask your denomination? Slow-mo says, real truth. Thanks for sharing. That's frustrating for those who need it. Yeah, it is frustrating. I think you're talking about the Adderall shortage. It's incredibly frustrating. Some people really do need and benefit from it, and it's heartbreaking that the shortage is happening right now. Mike, what's up? I'm so glad to see you. I hope you're doing well, friend. What's going on with you? How has your, I don't think I've really engaged with you since for like a week or um, I feel like the last time we really talked was the night of FMD's live. And I hope you're doing well since then. I want to know what's going on with you, friend. Scott says, I emulate AA and have faith. I try to always be honest, do the right thing the best I can, and try to take inventory to the best of my ability. I be of service to other people. I think those are great steps, no pun intended, to be taking, Scott. And I think it's wonderful that you're working on defining recovery for yourself. I commend you for that. I can understand, Scott, how it would be hard for you to follow the advice of your addiction specialist, being that AA has been such a big part of your life. I can totally relate. Kimmy says, Gonzo, what's the third substance you're referring to that requires mental assistance to detox off of it? Gonzo says, well, this is, I don't think that's in response to Kimmy. Gonzo said, well, this is how I feel, Tara, but I don't feel right just sharing it over the comment sections. Gonzo, I'm wondering if I missed something, what you're talking about. I want you to feel free and safe to share what you want to share here, but I also understand if you're not wanting to publicly air what you're going through. So I get what you're saying, and I support whatever decision you make. Share, don't share. I get it. Scott says, I am in a non-denominational church. I get lidocaine shots, and that makes me not feel a thing. Okay, I think Gonzo's answering Kimmy's question. Benzos, alcohol, and shit. I don't think I was supposed to say the S word, but it's too late. Yeah, Kimmy wants to know what that is. Rachel back in the house. I've been here in and out. Yeah, no, I understand. So Rachel's got a lot going on right now. Sorry, guys, still listening when I can while I run errands. I forgot my headphones. Oh no, Rachel, those headphones are your lifeline. Scott says, thank you so much. I still have my shortcomings. I can be too harsh. I can be irritable and I can dwell in the past, being hard on myself. Uh, yeah, hard on myself. Thank you, Slomo. Bless you as well. Scott, I think we were conditioned to be pretty hard on ourselves, especially in AA. And there's all kinds of sayings that we take to be as gospel. And I think a lot of them have merit. I really, really do. I think there's a lot of value in AA. I love it. I loved getting sober there. And I still think about going back to meetings at times. I just have such different ideology these days after being through peer support that I can't imagine not being able to speak my truth. You know, I value honesty so much. I just feel like there's kind of a um, desynchronization when it comes to my perspective on recovery and the perspective that AA has. But I do respect the ideology, and it does help a lot of people. And I'm not going to argue with that. It helped me. Matt says, my friend Dave had an addiction to Viagra. It made it hard to get close to him. Literally. Gonzo, I think this is a what's that movie called? Idiocracy reference. So I didn't say it in the chat the other night, but Kimmy, I also have not seen Idiocracy. So I think the chat would agree that we both have a homework assignment. Gonzo says, I just attended Smart Terra. So, Gonzo, are there sponsors in Smart Recovery? Scott says, really quick, Marky, I want to say what's up to you. Where you been, Marky? What's going on with you? Why are you so quiet, man? Are you okay? Scott says, I just got offered a job at a risk reduction treatment center, and I'm going to have to open my view on recovery to best help people in risk reduction if I choose to do that. Yeah, Scott, I went through the same thing with peer support specialist training. It was actually very difficult for me to open up my mind. Interestingly, the suggestion, or not, it's not a suggestion. My nurse practitioner is not telling me what to do one way or the other, but I would have never been open to the idea of potentially one day using marijuana recreationally every once in a while unless she would have brought it up and had a and that I also went through peer support specialist training. So I totally relate to what you're saying, and I definitely support the last part of your statement there. If I choose to do that, absolutely. It's going to be your choice, and I want you to feel free to come back here and chat with me, with us about exactly how your process looks because it is a process. Kimmy doesn't have a desire to see it. I have mixed feelings on Idiocracy. On one hand, I think that it could be entertaining, a way for me to kind of check out and just let loose for a little bit. And I don't historically love watching movies. There's so many that I haven't seen. At the same time, I've had friends for over a decade now telling me I need to see this movie, and now it's coming up again. So I might invest the energy into watching it, but I hear what you're saying, Kimmy, and I'm not necessarily looking forward to it. I'm more just curious. Scott says, honestly, I used the THC 4 times. The first time I thought I was dying. The three other times I felt more guilt while on it. But my appointment with my specialist today made me feel better. Scott, do you mean that you've used it 4 times in your recovery or you've used it 4 times in your life? Oh, Marky's studying. Okay. So are you listening to this podcast style, Marky? How's it sounding to you if you are? Marky, it's a documentary. Are you talking about Idiocracy as a documentary? Anne Marie Bliss in the house. Hey girl, how you doing? We've been talking about a lot of things. I have talked about my train wreck of a week and how I've needed to ask for a lot of support from friends, family. I've had 3 sessions with my therapist. I'm not going to go into the details of exactly what happened because everyone here has heard it a few times already. I still have some additional content that I haven't even got to yet. But Anne Marie, I'm glad you're here. And let me know how you're doing. Have you finished all that cleanup that you were working on, all the legal documents that needed to be shredded? Is that done now? Are you free? Scott says, when I lived in a sober house, 2 of my roommates overdosed and I found them both. This treatment center is 500 people, 95% fentanyl addicts. So I'm worried about the exposure to trauma. Yeah, Scott, we learned about that in peer support specialist training. It's called secondary trauma. And it's so important to have good supports in place to help us cope with the types of things that we hear, the trauma that we're exposed to that's not our own. So I so relate to everything that you're saying this evening. Slomo says, Scott, THC may not be for you. That's how I feel on it. Scott says, I used it twice last weekend and the weekend before, as it was my first bout with sciatica. Okay, Scott, so I'm going to go back to your comment. I've used THC 4 times. The first time I thought I was dying. The 3 other times I felt more guilt while on it. My appointment with my specialist today made me feel better. So that's really interesting to me, Scott. I think mindset really makes a difference when it comes to our experiences. Certainly with my ketamine treatment, it's a psychedelic experience. My mindset really affects the outcome of my trip. And I think personally that marijuana is no different than that. Uh, in my past, it's been over 2.5 years since I've engaged. But if I was feeling paranoid or scared and I smoked, that would be exacerbated. If I was feeling at ease and just wanting to let loose with some friends, it was an enjoyable experience. So I think that having your mind be set at ease by your specialist and having it recommended by him, it's totally your choice. I just think that mindset, with or without substances, I mean, mindset is so important in general, whether we're talking about a psychedelic trip using THC as prescribed, it's mindset is everything. I'm really looking forward to hearing how you move through this, Scott. Slomo says, Tara, you will love Idiocracy. I'll I'll be able to I think I probably will see it. I was gonna say I'll be the judge of that, but I didn't want it to sound too snarky or, whatever. Kimmy says, I've been thinking of using THC again once a week. Kimmy, thanks for sharing that. I was wondering how your how it was gonna go for you. Kimmy, what are your what are your reasons for that? And how do you feel about it? Gonzo says gabapentin can cause severe seizures, quitting cold turkey. And Slomo says that may be Gonzo. I've never experienced that, but makes me want to look into it. Gonzo says, yes, Tara, there are. I think, Gonzo, are you talking about there being sponsors in Smart Recovery? Sometimes when I get behind like this, I can't remember what I asked. Scott says, I used chronically when I was young, but I administered it differently to get away from the ritual. Gonzo's got tons of gabapentin prescribed, but really takes it. Slomo's welcoming Anne Marie. Yeah, Anne Marie, glad you made it. Big Dummy in the house. Yo, Big Dummy, how are you doing? I'm so glad you dropped a comment. I've never seen you here. First time for everything. Big Dummy says, good evening. I wish I could use THC without losing take-home privileges from the methadone clinic. In my opinion, it's a silly policy. That is something I've never heard before, Big Dummy. If you're still in the house, how long have you been on methadone, if I can ask? And did they test you? Probably, huh? Anne Marie says, I'm okay. I'm glad to just hang out. We're 4 drawers away. Then it's all neatly organized junk like odd plumbing parts, electronics. I don't even know. But but they have lived there 50 years. That's so much to go through, Anne Marie, but you're getting close. Scott says ketamine treatment. Oh, what did I skip? Scott said, also interestingly, my doctor was allowing me to supplement gabapentin and Suboxone on top of Sublocade for pain. But since I used the THC, I haven't used any other prescription for pain. Ketamine treatment sounds really interesting. I've had interest in hypnotism and ayahuasca for nicotine. Scott, that's an interesting insight that you have about the THC. I'm wondering which route you prefer. Okay, Kimmy, I stopped using it after my diagnosis because I thought maybe it could make some symptoms worse, but I haven't noticed any changes since stopping. That's fair, Kimmy. I have to warm this up because my throat, like my voice is starting out, and I think I need something warm. I'm just gonna drink straight out of my thermos because it's hot. Did I even? I just my brain just shorted out because of I needed a drink. Kimmy, did I ask you? I don't think I asked you any questions. I've got questions. So I remember when you stopped using after your diagnosis, and I'm wondering a lot of different things. Actually, I'm wondering, and forgive me if this is. I don't want to overstep boundaries here. I'm wondering your medical care team thinks about this, if you've talked to them about it, and what your therapist would say. Have you talked with them about it? I'm just curious. Forgive me if that's off limits. Anne Marie says, and there's a large outbuilding in the backyard too. That's a lot, Anne Marie. I'll be looking forward to hearing that that's done and part of your past, but I'm glad you're here hanging out. Gonzo, yes, I was referring to sponsors. Okay, I've been wondering that for so long, and I'm sure you've answered me several times, and I've missed it because I cannot keep caught up with the comments. I know I skipped over a bunch of stuff. I'm hoping to be able to go back. I also have some more stuff that I want to mention here, and my voice is going out. So, what's a girl to do? Kimmy says, Tara, I don't typically discuss personal decisions with my care team because I know my body better than they do. However, my PCP supports it fully. Right on, Kimmy. That makes sense. I wish I could do that, but I have a deal with my nurse practitioner right now. Excuse me. All right, I'm going to scroll. Wait, I missed something from Scott. Scott says, I've been supplementing 2 milligrams of subs a couple times a week prior to the THC I've been using, or prior to the THC I've been using gummies, but the first one I took was too strong. When I was younger, I would smoke bongs. Yeah, Scott, I used to smoke dabs. I don't think if I engaged with using THC again that I would go the dab route. I would probably go with something. I'd probably start smoking CBD again, honestly. If I started smoking weed again, it'd probably be CBD, just for me personally, so that I'm not having to wrestle with the temptation to get high. But to each their own. I'm not knocking getting high. I'm just saying that for me, it might be a really slippery slope. Big Dummy says, I've seen the signs for paying a doctor for a license, but it messes with other rights. I think I missed something. Sorry, Big Dummy. I think I missed something. I'm not quite. I wanted to make a comment on your comment. I don't know if my brain is shorting out, if my voice is shorting out, or if I missed something. Kimmy says that came out wrong. I just don't trust their answers much of the time because, well, you know, my issues with the medical system. Yeah, that's understandable, Kimmy. I hear where you're coming from, and that's a valid concern. Scott, yeah, I agree. We were obsessed with blasting our own oil. I was a degenerate. Kimmy, and I would tell them that I was using it, just wouldn't necessarily ask their opinion on it. Okay, Kimmy. I think I painted myself into a corner, but my nurse practitioner wouldn't have even seen me for my first appointment if I hadn't already been clean and sober. So we're in a little bit of a different boat there. I hear where you're coming from though, 100%. And if I were in your shoes, I would probably, well, I can't say what I would do in your shoes. But I think if my nurse practitioner didn't require me to be clean and sober to get treatment, then I it's hard to say what I would do in my case. I'm kind of glad that there's that boundary there so it can give me time to figure out how I feel about it. How does my voice sound to y'all? Are y'all okay with the way it sounds? I'm just going to keep hydrating cuz I have a lot more to say and y'all have a lot to say too. Yeah, Scott. So Scott says I had to find a good specialist. Honestly, she saved my life and my family. I couldn't be more lucky. Scott, you make such a good point here. I think finding the right people is critical. And I don't just mean medical care, therapists, mental health care. I mean support system. The topic of tonight's meeting is that I need support too. And I have learned in the past couple of years that if I'm barking up the wrong tree, it's not going to do me a lick of good. I got to bark up the right tree. I got to talk to the right people. I got to reach out to people who are available and who are there for me. It makes a huge difference to have strong supports in your circle. Yeah, Jill, I'm trying. I don't know. I have so much more to say. I might have to make a part 2 of this because my voice, it doesn't seem like it wants to continue going. I'm trying to drink. I've got a whole thing. I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom here in a minute if I keep drinking, but I wonder if I can mute this and try to clear. I'm gonna mute and try to clear my voice real quick. All right, let's see if that helped at all. Not really. Scott thought his specialist was about full abstinence. Okay, so Scott had to find someone who trusted his feelings about recovery, but also keeps him accountable. She's in recovery as well. Scott, it sounds like you're working with someone who really knows what they're doing and who is up to date on the current techniques and strategies that actually are effective today and not caught up in some ideology from 100 years ago. No offense to people who are into AA and NA. It works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. Scott, gum always helps me when I'm losing my voice. I could pop some gum, Scott, but then I'm nervous I'm going to be chewing in y'all's ear. If I have your blessing to pop some gum to help my voice out, I will do it and continue going. If I can get a few chew some gum comments, I'm going to pop some gum right now. See if it helps. Matt says, no, that's a tasty beverage. Matt, I've actually just got hot water here. That's all this is hot water. Matt's got a narcoleptic kleptomaniac friend who always gets caught. Pop some gum, Scott says. It's your channel. We are just taking it gratefully. Scott, I'm gonna pop some gum. If I, if people aren't okay with it, then I respect that 100%. But I'm just gonna, I want to show up the best I can for you, and I want to keep going. I got a lot more to say. Y'all got stuff to say. I still have a bunch of comments I haven't got to, and I haven't even got through all of the stuff. I said I was gonna share a couple stories. I've only got part way through one, and I've got some other things to say. So I'm gonna pop some gum and see if it helps. I'm in the I'm in the Kimmy camp now. I'm gonna pop some nicotine gum. I don't actually have any gum that's not nicotine gum. I didn't start chewing it to stop smoking. I stopped smoking. I started chewing this recently, a few months ago, for the health benefits. Actually, I don't know if you all have heard about the health benefits of nicotine. Small amounts, like moderation style. Kimmy retracted a statement. I wonder what that was all about. Big Dummy says, sorry, I've been on methadone for over 20 years. I did come off of it for 3, but relapsed. Big Dummy, why are you apologizing for that, man? Or woman? I don't know. I don't know how you identify. Actually, I don't know if you're maybe you're they. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't know your gender. Now I'm apologizing to you. That's so funny. Scott, I'm not going to lie, your rhetoric and dialogue is so similar to mine. It's kind of tripping me out. Scott, maybe we are on the same wavelength. We must be, if that's the case. It's nice to meet your acquaintance. I'm looking forward to seeing you around more here. Scott, your username, I appreciate y'all bearing with me with the way my voice is acting right now. We'll see how much longer I can go for, but I might have to just make this a part 2 because the gum doesn't really seem to be helping much. But Scott, I'm wondering where I've seen you before. Is it Kevin's live that I've seen you before? Or if you can trigger my memory, or if you even know. Okay, so you've been in Kevin and Kim. I was like, yeah, I mean, your screen name is it looks so familiar to me. I know I've seen you around. So it's nice to see you here, Scott. And that would probably be trippy to hear someone that sounds to be speaking similar to you. Well, let's see if I can make it through at least I'm at least going to summarize the end of my experience with my therapist and the whole thing that I brought you all through, and just tell you that today I have felt so much better than I felt on Saturday and Sunday. And I give a lot of the credit to my therapist. I could not have done it without her. I mean, to spend 2.5 hours over the weekend on the phone with a client who's struggling, that says so much to me about the type of person she is. Granted, she does get to bill for her time, so it's a win-win. She gets paid, I get support. So without using too many words as an effort to save my voice, I will just tell you, I'm so happy. I wasn't going to reach out to her at all. I was scared, but I needed support. And it's something that I wanted to touch on here. I can't end this live stream without saying this, is that just because somebody has not taken any steps back from recovery does not mean that they don't need support too. I have made it 2.5 years without using any kind of mind altering substance. I am on medication. I take it as prescribed. I do get ketamine treatment, get it by a clinician as prescribed, and it's helping me. That being said, I have been able to make it over 2.5 years into my recovery without any slips, no setbacks. And I feel sometimes that people overlook my need for support because, first of all, I'm not very good at asking about it. And second of all, there are people out there who are constantly in and out of recovery. And I'm guilty of this too. I am guilty to supporting people who need support in terms of staying in recovery and who haven't quite made it to the point in their recovery where they're they're in and out, and that's their journey. I'm not judging them. What I'm saying is that just because somebody has maintained their recovery as defined by them, which for me it's been abstinence, does not mean that I don't need support. What I've become painfully aware of this past week is that it's really hard for me to ask for it, but I need it. I need it just as much as the person who takes a step back from recovery and goes back to using. I've found it over the past week. And when I wrote the title of this last week, before I even went through everything that I went through this week, I wrote that title because I was feeling overwhelmed with feeling like I couldn't ask for support, feeling like I wasn't going to be heard, or feeling like I didn't deserve to ask for support because compared to some people, the support might be better used on other people. But now, having gone through everything I've gone through, I realize that not only do I deserve support, but I need support. I literally need it in order to maintain not only my substance use recovery, but my mental health recovery as well. I mentioned earlier in the live, but I'm going to say it again, that I think mental health recovery is something that's too often overlooked with substance use recovery. And if people can make it long enough in their substance use recovery for a clinician, a therapist, whomever they decide to engage with, to be able to actually provide a diagnosis, or if there is no diagnosis, to recommend a treatment, that whole process can help to protect our recovery, however we want to define it. We've been talking about all kinds of different perspectives in terms of, Jill, have a good night. I appreciate you saying to rest up. I definitely will be resting up my voice after this, but I couldn't end this stream, even though my voice is about to go out. I couldn't end this stream without expressing how important I think it is to support people, even if they appear to be doing well. I've been told since the beginning of my recovery, just like Kimmy was talking about, she considered herself to be a high functioning addict. I have been told by case managers that I've had over the past couple of years that I present well, and that I didn't get access to some of the supports that were available to people who need it more because I present well. And I think that's been an ongoing theme. And I can't live that way anymore. So I'm certainly not telling y'all what to do. And this isn't a plea for attention or anything like that. The reason that I wanted to communicate that I need support too is because I know I can't be the only one. Feel free to let me know if sometimes you feel like, because you've been in recovery for a certain period of time, that you should be okay. And if at times you have felt like, I can't speak for you, but I'll speak for me. At times I've felt like maybe it's just not all worth it. Like, maybe to get the support that I need, I should take a step back from recovery. I don't need this. But I think that learning to ask for support before taking a step back from recovery is what gives us longevity. And it's also what helps us to actually recover. If we're going back and forth and not asking for help, then we're putting our recovery at risk. And when I say recovery, I'm not only talking about substance use recovery, I'm talking about mental health recovery as well. Matt, I am chewing some gum. I've got gum in my mouth right now and it's like not helping at all. Humidifier sounds like a good idea. I think I missed something about Winona Ryder. Rachel back in the house. And she says, but you absolutely deserve support and I'm always here for you. Rachel, I really appreciate that. You have been here for me and I am so thankful for your friendship. Anne Marie says, I think it's great you realized you need help. It doesn't do you any good to white knuckle life. You asked before slipping or leaving yourself in a bad place mentally for a longer period of time. Absolutely, Anne Marie. I appreciate that validation. It's not an easy thing for me to, like I've said before, throw up the white flag and ask for support, but it has made a difference. I actually had what I would say is the most important therapy sessions of my life this past weekend because I followed the suggestion of my friend Rachel, who she was the first one I reached out to. And because of it wasn't even, she didn't even tell me to do it. She just asked if I was going to do it. And after we got off the phone, I got to thinking I probably should do that, even though it was out of my comfort zone. It was the right thing to do, and it absolutely helped. Heather, thank you to everyone who shared. I echo that. I appreciate everyone who shared. Tara looks like Tara. Was I being compared to Winona Ryder? Because I'll take that as a compliment. She's gorgeous. She's one of a kind. Aw, y'all are sweet. I know I missed a bunch of comments. My voice is probably not going to last for much longer, although it feels a little better. Does it sound a little better? Because I have some additional things to say. I could probably squeeze everything out and not put in a part two. How are y'all feeling? Let's get a pulse. Should I try to squeeze this all into one session or should I break it up into two? Big Dummy says, I haven't found any decent mental health support here in Georgia. Ooh, that's alarming. I lived here my whole life, but you can't help noticing that this place is over 20 years behind everywhere else on earth. Big Dummy, that's got to be incredibly frustrating. I'm wondering if you have insurance, Big Dummy, and if you have called your insurance ever and asked them, or no, better question. That's not a good, I want to take that question back and ask you, how have you found the mental health support that you have found? And what are some other routes that you might try? And then I can share with you what's worked for me. But I want to hear the answer to that question before I share. Think it sounds good. All right. It's kind of going out a little bit, but I don't have that much more to share and I think I can squeeze it out. If you're just joining us, hey, welcome to the party. I am doing my best. My voice has been kind of going in and out, but tell me who you are. Tell me what you're going through. The chat's here to support you. I'm here to support you. And I'm doing my best to keep my voice intact because I have more to say. And as long as y'all have more to say, I want to be here to support you. Yes, Scott, I appreciate that. For my sake, priority. Scott, I will definitely do that. If my voice starts going out a little bit more, then I'll probably postpone the rest of what I have to say. But I feel like it's kind of rebounded a little bit, having popped the gums. So we're just going to roll with it. I like to ride waves, so I'm going to ride the wave. Mm. Okay, so Big Dummy says, I take that back. Recovery International was great, but the cough, or as Slow-Mo endearingly calls it, the coof, shut the meetings down. I appreciate the code word, shut the meetings down. Anne Marie, the next time you're having a hard time, remember this time. Think about what steps you took and pat yourself on the back. Think about it until it comes to mind next time. You're absolutely right, Anne Marie. Look at you supporting me. I appreciate you and everyone who has offered me support tonight. I am truly grateful for it. And I don't feel ashamed anymore to ask for it. I think the work that I did with my therapist this weekend, and we're not even done. I've shared it already. I'll share it again that we have more work to do tomorrow. We're going to continue our session and focus on the reprocessing part of the EMDR process. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't really know what to expect. I've never had an EMDR session broken up into two, but I do again want to reiterate it was the hardest phone call to make. It was one of the hardest emotional meltdowns that I've experienced in my recovery. And I think it was also the most beneficial. I really think that this whole week and weekend happened for a reason. I think it's a critical part of my mental health recovery. I'm actually really excited that it all happened. And I'm excited to meet with my therapist tomorrow. And I'm even more excited to see what the effects on my life are going to be moving forward because I put in the work. I am proud of myself, Anne Marie, and I will pat myself on the back. And I appreciate you for saying that. And again, I know I've said it, I'll say it again. I appreciate everyone in the support for showing up and providing support, for making yourself available to me because I do deserve it. And I really believe that today. That is a miracle that I feel that. I just got to say, it hasn't always been that way. Scott says EMDR was my jam. EMDR is making a huge difference in my life. So okay, Scott says getting PTSD under control is so life-changing. I'm so happy for you. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I still have PTSD, unfortunately. I still have the adjustment disorder diagnosis, but I'm told that they're temporary. They can be, well, they're not always temporary, but they can be treated. And therefore, as long as I continue to do the work and put the time and energy into my recovery, both my substance use recovery and my mental health recovery, they can be temporary. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that means for my life, like how I'm able to show up for other people and provide support and maybe even make a dent in terms of the way I show up in the world, what I create in the world because of the choices that I've made. I just want to revisit my list here, make sure that I touched on everything. I know there's something I forgot. And at this point, I don't think it merits a part two. My voice is good enough. You know, something I didn't say, I meant to say it in the beginning, is why I had a hard time asking for support. And I don't know why I'm sharing this at the end, but maybe it can help somebody. Maybe you can relate. The reason that I didn't want to ask for support and why it's been the biggest challenge in my recovery, really asking for support, is I didn't want to come off as needy, and I was embarrassed that I had to ask for help. It's like I've read the big book. I've read so many psychology books. I minored in psychology. It's like I should have this figured out. I should, which is not recovery language, by the way. The word should. Uh, I talked about that in my first video. Shoulding is counterproductive. Shitting on other people and shitting on ourselves is not productive, and it's not recovery language. So I'm going to put this in air quotes and say, I should have this figured out. I should be able to manage my emotions on my own. That is not how we are built. We are social creatures, and we are designed to connect with people. And we've talked about this before. As I land the plane here, I'm going to reiterate that the opposite of addiction is connection. And so reaching out for support and accepting help, sometimes more than what we're able to give it, is critical in our recovery process. Let me just visit these comments here as I wind things down. If I skipped your comment earlier because I skipped a whole bunch of stuff, I really apologize. Thank you for bearing with me as my voice has gone in and out. Scott says EMDR was rough on the front end, but paid dividends. Oh my God, how you said you showed up. It helped me show up without expectations. I can show up without feeling impending betrayal or hurt. 100%. I think that that's true with EMDR and with the recovery process. It's challenging. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is absolutely worth it in the end. Hmm. Big dummy. Main issues are related to traumatic brain injuries. That is got to be challenging to deal with. Big dummy. I really hope that you're getting the support that you deserve. So, big dummy, I had asked you some questions, and I do want to share a little bit of my experience as we wind down here. I'm going to wrap things up in just a few minutes. And again, if you're still here, I really appreciate you spending time with me, with us, the group. And big dummy, you have insurance, and I also have insurance. Thank God. What has really worked for me in finding, because I think, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're the one who was saying that mental health support in Georgia is lacking. And what's really helped me is to reach out to my insurance and tell them exactly what it is that I'm looking for. They have been fantastic in giving me options, and they've been great about just giving me 3 options. So if you're able, or what I have done is called my insurance and said, can I get a short list of people who can help me with, when I found my therapist, I asked specifically my insurance, can you please recommend 3 therapists who specialize in EMDR? I am looking for EMDR treatment. And they figured it out for me. I called them all, and I selected the one that I felt connected with. And that's the therapist that I've been seeking treatment with for the past year, and it's truly changed my life. She's not even in California. She used to live in California. She lives in Hawaii now, and we telehealth via the Doxy platform. So there's a chance that your person might not even be in Georgia. Gonzo says, I had a setback today that I would love all your opinions on, but the comment section is not the place. I cannot uh, I cannot condense my day in such a short span. Gonzo, we'd love to hear more about it. Please feel free to reach out to us after the meeting if you're not wanting to share it publicly. Something I didn't share is I got this email, and I have started receiving emails from people. If you're watching this and you sent me an email, thank you. I've really enjoyed getting them and corresponding with you. If you ever feel like there's something that you want to share, but you don't want to do it in a public forum, feel free to reach out to me via email. It's free, and I absolutely look forward to hearing from you. Big dummy, that's a solution I hadn't thought about. Moving. Perhaps that's going to be the best move that you could make, no pun intended. Okay, Gonzo knows an amazing therapist. If anybody's looking for one, I am not looking for one. I have the best therapist that I could ever ask for, but I'm sure that some people would benefit from recommendations. Gonzo, it's very thoughtful of you to want to share and help other people. Okay, y'all. I, again, really apologize if I skipped over an important comment. Hopefully, if there's something I skipped, I want to give you a chance, actually. I'm going to stick around for another minute or two. If there's something I missed that's really important that you want to get out here before we wind down, feel free to type it in the chat right now. I'm going to stay real time. I'm also going to go back and review the comments that I missed because I think it's really important. I am hoping that I turned that option on, and now as I think of it, I don't remember checking that box. So if I lose all the comments, that's going to be really unfortunate, but feel free to get any last thoughts, concerns, questions, anything you want that wasn't addressed earlier. Get it out now. Or what's that saying? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Scott, did you have a point in recovery where you felt like an imposter, like you were just doing what was said but didn't feel it? Absolutely, Scott. I think it's really common to experience imposter syndrome. And actually, I do volunteer work for a local organization. We work with the unhoused population, and I sit on the steering committee as a representative of that group. And we met this past week, not this past week, the week before. We met with all the local leaders, the city, the county, the police department, and different nonprofits, other influential organizations that make decisions about budget showed up to this meeting. And here I am sitting with all of these influential people feeling like an imposter. And this example that came to mind doesn't necessarily have to do with my substance use recovery, but I would say in terms of my recovery, it absolutely applies here, because if I hadn't spent the past almost 3 years focusing on my recovery in terms of both substances and mental health, there is no way that I would have been able to show up and be present and speak to all of these leaders on behalf of my group. As I was sitting there, I felt that imposter syndrome, like, I don't belong here. They don't care what I have to say. Not true. And none of that's true. I talked with the director of the organization I volunteer with afterwards, and he brought it up. He's like, I don't know if you ever experienced imposter syndrome, but sometimes I do. I was like, you do? I was like, I was just feeling that way. Like, I don't belong here. I don't have anything, like, I was wondering if I actually had value to add. And he said everything that I had to share absolutely added value. And I got feedback from other people too. People were shaking their heads and making comments that what I had to share made an impact. So absolutely, just last week, I had a point in my recovery where I felt like an imposter. And especially now, getting over my programming from AA and NA, that if you're not completely abstinent from all mind altering substances, you're not in recovery. I take mental health medication and I'm undergoing ketamine treatment. And I have had someone in my AA circle question and push back, suggesting that because I take ketamine as prescribed, that I'm no longer clean and sober. And I couldn't disagree with them anymore. So that's two examples of how I've had to deal with imposter syndrome. I've questioned my own sobriety because of the comment that this person made. But at the end of the day, I have decided that my decisions, I'm comfortable with them and I stand behind them 100%, and I wouldn't change a single decision that I've made. But yes, to answer your question, I do experience that. Tala says, Jesus Christ is King. Tala has a great channel. If you're into the millennial reign, if you want to learn about it, if you're interested in being with like-minded people who share the same beliefs as you, I would recommend going over to Kingdom Within's channel. Kimmy was in here earlier. I think she might be driving or en route to somewhere. She has a great channel, meetings on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. If you're ever interested in hanging out with a lot of the same people you see here. Kickin' Addiction has a great channel also, meetings on Wednesday nights. And I wanted to give a shout out to Fentanyl Anonymous. He's got a great channel as well. If you haven't ever checked him out, he was one of the first people to reach out to me when the whole Matthew Perry ketamine treatment thing started rearing its head in the news. Fentanyl Anonymous was the first person to reach out. Big Dummy. Big Dummy. Right on, everyone. Thank y'all. I'm 46. I have issues with executive functioning when it comes to taking care of stuff like insurance and everything. We'll see once it takes effect in January 1st. I think that sounds like a great plan, Big Dummy, and I'm so happy to hear that you're going to have coverage come January 1st. Gonzo, Tara, I can talk to you from experience with what you're saying. We'll chat later and I'll explain it to you. Okay, Gonzo, I'll be looking forward to hearing what you're going through. Scott, I sometimes have times where I am of service and feel amounts of gratitude. Have you noticed any difference in what helps you get into that state? I'm a chronic imposter syndromer. Yes, Scott. So I have self-admittedly not been doing a good job at meditating daily. When I do meditate, I am able to clear my mind. That's my goal for a period of time, is just to clear things out as things come in and I let them pass. Once I'm able to achieve a clear-headed state, I then shift my focus to appreciation. Appreciation is one of the highest vibration emotions that we can feel and hold in our bodies. Even higher than love, some people say, because love it's such a loaded word. Appreciation, to me, I'm able to get into that zone of feeling good. That being said, if I'm in a depressive episode, I need some support, which is the ketamine treatment is really helping me with. So to answer your question, for me, first of all, my mental state has to be at a baseline, at least a 5. It doesn't really work for me if I am having a 3 out of 10 day or a 4 out of 10 day. But what I've noticed is that since I've started ketamine treatment, my mood has been on an average a 5 or a 6. And in those cases, meditation and focusing after I get clear on appreciation helps me feel those feelings of gratitude. Big Dummy, thank you, Tara. And folks, this is amazing. I'm glad your channel is in the recommended section. This is a blessing. Big Dummy, thanks for sharing that. I'm so glad you found us. I'm glad we were in the recommendation section too, and I hope that we see you around. It's been really nice meeting your acquaintance. And I'm here every Monday night. I've started doing this a few weeks ago, and I plan on continuing doing it, and it would be great to continue seeing you around. You're welcome, Tala. Right on, Kimmy. Uh, how's the audio? Does my voice sound a little like it's recovered a little bit? David Malton in the chat. Hey man, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're winding things down here, but appreciation, I think, is absolutely the way. It's not the only way, but for me, it's the best emotion that I am capable of feeling. Yeah, yeah, Gonzo. Fen Anonymous hit 1,000 subs. I was in the chat when I'm a moderator for Fentanyl Anonymous, and I was so happy for him when he hit 1,000. It's a big milestone. Yeah, he did a lot of his videos just vertical format. Yep. Imagine if he had even the slightest to set up like Kevin. You know, Dan just started using StreamYard recently. I would love to see him continue doing what he's doing, and I agree it'll be great to see him as he continues to grow. I'm looking forward to watching him grow. Yeah, David, how do we get there? Appreciation. Yep. Dan is the Howard Stern of recovering fent addicts. Scott, when some described praying as talking and meditating as listening, it made such a big difference for me. I've heard that too, Scott, and I think there's something very profound about that statement. I actually had someone who I respect very much in AA said that his granddaughter is the one who told him that praying is talking to God and meditate, or yeah, praying is when you talk to God and meditation is when you listen. And I thought that was profound. Personally, meditation for me is more of a clearing of my mind and then shifting my focus to appreciation. And then the listening, for me personally, comes into play after I've gone through that process. David Malton, ketamine, isn't that a horse tranquilizer? Someone said that to me in the comments section of like my Matthew Perry video, I think it was. I don't know if it's used as a horse tranquilizer. I cannot answer that question, but you're not the first. Unless you're the same person who made that comment, which I don't think you are. Maybe you are. I don't think so, though. I don't know. Yeah, I just hit 100 on Saturday, and that took a long time. You know, like that it took to get to 1,000. Like I don't even know if I will ever get there, but I'll tell you what, I'm gonna enjoy the journey because this is super fun. I love sitting here with you all and hearing what you have to say. And again, I really appreciate you showing up and being here with me. Y'all are a really important part of my support system. Although I've only started doing this a few weeks ago, I've noticed a difference in the way that I feel when I interact with you. So I'm going to be redundant here, but I really, really want to express some gratitude for you showing up. Yeah, Big Dummy, nature helps me too. I agree. I used to spend a lot of time in nature. documented a lot of that on Instagram. And in the past, since I've been in recovery, I haven't been spending as much time in nature, but my goal is to get back to a lot of the activities that I was doing before I got into recovery. And I really want to share that whole process with you. So I agree with you. Nature is a great way to get centered. Okay, Kimmy says, yeah, ketamine it's used as a horse tranquilizer. So there's the answer to that. Now I know. Thanks, Kimmy. Hmm. It wasn't invented as a horse trank, though. It was a misconception. That's where the misconception is. David, when you say AA, do you mean the 12 steps? David, I don't. I I'm not recalling exactly what that comment is in reference to, but when I say AA, I mean Alcoholics Anonymous. Uh, but I mean, they are kind of interchangeable, but there's so many different 12-step groups that are spin-off of AA. So I tend to use them separately, even though they are connected. Tala, always going to be here to support you. Thank you, Tala. I appreciate that, and I also accept it. I'm happy to say that I can accept the support these days, and it actually feels good to me. That's huge progress. Big Dummy, very nice. Wish you great success. I appreciate that, Big Dummy. Thank you. Kingdom loves everyone in the chat. They are all awesome. Everyone here is fantastic. Scott, I appreciate your ability to convey your experience in a meaningful and kind way. You have a unique skill and have such a natural awareness to people who relate to you. I'm really blessed I joined. Scott, that's a really, really nice comment. Thank you for taking the time to type that out. I couldn't ask for a better comment as we wind things down here and get ready to wrap up. David's thanking Kimmy. David, Kimmy is full of really valuable information. I don't know if you were here when I plugged her channel earlier, but Kimmy, Kimmy's Playhouse is the name of her channel. She goes live on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and we have a ball over there. It's always a really fun time over there. Kingdom, also Koodles. That's not one that you hear every day. To you, for keeping your stream lit and busy. I wish I could take credit for y'all's activity in the chat, but I'm just so thankful to have a group of people who show up here and who are active. It's really fun. And I appreciate you for doing that, all of you, for showing up, sharing what you're going through, the encouragement, the support. I feel supported, and I can't express enough gratitude for you showing up. Thank you. David, how long? Oh, Big Dummy agreed. Just sub to Tara's channel. Thank you, Big Dummy. It's nice to have you. Welcome to the fam. I hope to be seeing you around a lot. David, like the Bible, a Bible of sorts. David, how long have you been clean? David, I have been clean and sober for over 2.5 years now. I'm coming up on 3 years. And I'll make it. There's no way. Well, I don't know if I'll make it. I think I'm going to make it. I'm going to do my best one day at a time to make it to 3 years and beyond. April 2nd of 2021 is my date, and I've had no slips in that time, and I'm actually really proud of that. Tal, it's not easy to keep a group of people engaged in conversation on YouTube, and you did a splendid job. Tal, I appreciate that. And I also want to express some gratitude for y'all bearing with me as my voice kind of went out there. It seems to be stable. It's definitely weak, and I'm gonna need to rest it and recover. But I appreciate everyone for staying engaged and participating. It's such a pleasure. Yeah, Kimmy's Playhouse is always lit. Yep. I wish I had a moderator in here to drop your link, Kimmy. Um, I'm winding down here. It's Kimmy's Playhouse. It's Kimmy's Playhouse. Gonzo, I've watched all your streams, Tara, and you are concise, interesting from the start, but I can see the improvements you've made and how natural you are, not just on not just a specific topic, but just chatting. Gonzo, thank you so much. It truly is an honor, and I am really enjoying it. I am hoping that it just continues to be as enjoyable as it has been, because it really adds value to my life. So thank you for sharing that. Gonzo, you never say I don't know if that's true, Gonzo. I don't know. Do y'all have deja vu ever? Because I'm having deja vu right now, which is a very welcome thing. I have my own thoughts on what it might be. Um, um, I think I do say more than I would like. I'm working on decreasing the filler words. Yeah, Kimmy's a natural. She does a really great job with her streams, and she's got a rockin' setup. I aspire to grow into a setup like that. Yeah, Kimmy, good point. There's a really good group stream before. I don't even think I had started my channel at that point, but Kimmy hosted a great stream with obviously Kimmy, me, Morrison, Marky, and FMD or Fentanyl Anonymous, Rachel, and Megan, and Brandon. I think I had to leave. I think I had to miss out on the end of that because I had therapy, I think, or something. Okay, y'all. So I want to wind this awesome session down with there are some things I didn't touch on. I almost feel like it could be its own video, so I'm going to hold off on it. I'll tell you what it is, but I'm not going to go into detail. It's like I had this whole thing on how to ask for support, which I kind of touched on how I did it. There are some other tools that my therapist educated me on. So if you're interested in more ways on how to get support, stay tuned. I'll probably create a video about it. There was something else I really wanted to say. I want to reiterate. I've said it once. If you were here, it will be redundant. But if you weren't here, I just want to close out by saying um, I want to do a better job at being mindful to support people when they appear to be doing well. Because people need support in all seasons of life. And just because it looks like someone's doing well doesn't mean that they are. I have what's been called hidden depression. And even though I have a smile on my face, and that's something I thought I might get into tonight, but I'm going to save the reason that I named my channel. It started over on Instagram. The reason I named myself Tara Smiling, there's a story behind that. But tonight, I want to end it on that people who are smiling aren't necessarily okay. And so I want to encourage everybody in here to be mindful of being supportive to people who might not seem like they need it. And thinking about people who are appearing well, to consider to consider being available to them even if they don't ask for it. It could be as simple as saying, "How are you? You know, what's going on? Is there anything you want to talk about?" It's hard for some of us to open up, and some of us have been, like myself, have been programmed to present well and to put a smile on our face even if we're dying inside. And thank God I've been connected with the right people who are helping me to break through that and helping me to become comfortable with saying, "Hey, I need support." So, in closing, I want to say thank you for showing up here. Thank you for supporting me on my recovery journey. Thank you for allowing me and everyone in the chat to support you. I want to just do a double check. Tala says, "Damn girl, that's deep." I can imagine that I know what you're saying that in response to, probably the rant that I just went on. Kimmy says she totally relates, and Tala says, "Definitely been there." Yeah, it's not always, sometimes I'm not even aware that I need support when things are going well. But I mean, that's what friends are for, you know. Friends don't just support friends in the challenging times. They show up and celebrate and offer support in the good times too. So that's really what I wanted to get across tonight, is that everybody needs support. It's okay to ask for support, especially when we're not doing good, and it's okay to not be okay. It's also a beautiful, wonderful thing when we find people, like everyone here in the chat has made themselves available uh, to talk about. You showed up to a stream that was titled "I Need Support Too." You know, the fact that you showed up here means the world to me, and I appreciate every single one of you. Tala says, "And this is why it's so important to have recovery communities like y'all. Keep doing what y'all do if you have a recovery channel." And Kimmy says, "We love you, Tara." And Gonzo, I skipped your comment. It said, I read a lot of articles every day regardless, and in Spanish as well. It's supposed to help you speaking clearly, concise, and right. Gonzo, I think it's great that you read. And I think, you know, I just want to shout Gonzo out for a minute. I have seen Gonzo grow and offer more support as I see him around. And I so respect that. I so appreciate it. I think it's a wonderful thing to see people grow. Okay, y'all. So with that being said, I'm going to wind it down here. Thank you so much for showing up tonight. I know I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll probably say it 1,000 more times. I absolutely appreciate you. It has been a pleasure speaking with you all, as always. I love every single one of you. And I will be here next Monday. Next Monday is the holiday. And I forgot to mention it earlier. I will be going live at 4:15 on December 25th. I'll tell you more about, you know, my family doesn't actually celebrate the holidays. So I know y'all might be doing holidays with your families, which I totally support. I'm with you. I think it's wonderful. I am going to be showing up on Monday and doing a live stream. So if you care to join, that's awesome. If you can't make it, Restream Crew is the thing. And Rachel is still here. Hey, Rachel, I'm so glad you're still here. And Big Dummy, Terry, you're so right. I force smiling almost constantly. Excellent point. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. Gonzo says, "We love you, Tara. You're a beautiful soul and smoking hot." Thanks, Gonzo. I'm glad I didn't miss that comment. I appreciate that. Rachel says, "You can FaceTime Christmas with us, boo." Rachel, it'd be great to FaceTime with you on that day. For everyone else, I will be here next Monday, 4:15, same damn time, same damn place. And that's all I have to say this evening. I'm glad my voice made it. Again, I love you all very much. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your support. And I will talk to you soon.